The first one, as a person, you should have at least 6 months of emergency fund that you have. These are things that meet your things that you have not planned for. We typically have budgets which we run, but we never have emergency budgets. What happens when you actually have a person who gets sick? And none of us makes an appointment with sickness, but you must actually treat that sickness. What happens when you lose someone? That's what I call an emergency fund. That's the first thing you should always have. And as a rule of thumb, it should be at least 6 months of your monthly expense that you have. So if you're spending 1 million, you should have an emergency fund of 6 million that you should never touch and only reach, is only and only touched during emergencies. The second one that you should always drive to, whatever money you earn, whatever amount you earn, whatever, please bold that, it is whatever. You should save a minimum of 10%. That is your own payment. You spend money to pay the school fees, you spend money to pay the landlords, you spend money to pay your workers, whatever. Who pays you? The only person who pays you is yourself, and that's the money that you get. Now, that 10% minimum, as a rule of thumb, you can do higher if you can, but at least as a basic minimum, you should be able to save 10%. Then once you do the savings, you have to leverage those savings and use them as an investment vehicle. The money that you can invest, don't get the savings for the savings sake. Put the savings, and those savings must be invested to generate for you an income, either actively or passively. But whatever it is, that money should be able to work for you. So those are 3 things that I should be able to tell you about. Don't just rely on your job that this is what I'm doing. If you do your job and you've done savings, those savings should be able to do for you some additional money. And that's how you'll be able to build your wealth. My wealth building formula stands on 3 key pillars. The first one, as a person, you should have at least 6 months of emergency fund that you have. These are things that meet your things that you have not planned for. We typically have budgets which we run, but we never have emergency budgets. What happens when you actually have a person who gets sick? And none of us makes an appointment with sickness, but you must actually treat that sickness. What happens when you lose someone? That's what I call an emergency fund. That's the first thing you should always have. And as a rule of thumb, it should be at least 6 months of your monthly expense that you have. So if you're spending 1 million, you should have an emergency fund of 6 million that you should never touch and only reach, is only and only touched during emergencies. The second one that you should always drive to, whatever money you earn, whatever amount you earn, whatever, please bold that, it is whatever. You should save a minimum of 10%. That is your own payment. You spend money to pay the school fees, you spend money to pay the landlords, you spend money to pay your workers, whatever. Who pays you? The only person who pays you is yourself, and that's the money that you get. Now, that 10% minimum, as a rule of thumb, you can do higher if you can, but at least as a basic minimum, you should be able to save 10%. Then once you do the savings, you have to leverage those savings and use them as an investment vehicle. The money that you can invest, don't get the savings for the savings sake. Put the savings, and those savings must be invested to generate for you an income, either actively or passively. But whatever it is, that money should be able to work for you. So those are 3 things that I should be able to tell you about. Don't just rely on your job that this is what I'm doing. If you do your job and you've done savings, those savings should be able to do for you some additional money. And that's how you'll be able to build your wealth.
My name is Danstan Chisule. Currently, I am the CEO of YSAVE Multi-Purpose Cooperative Society Limited. YSAVE is actually an abbreviation, Young Savers Association, to get into ventures and to be enterprising. Biggest impact that it has had, number one, is people have gotten into the culture of saving. People to know that whenever I've made an income, I must have some form of saving. The Wealth Builder formula divided into 5 things. 10% tithe, 10% offering and giving and helping other people, charities and so on. 10% saving for emergencies, you never touch it at all. 20% for investment, 50% for spending. There is a webinar where I will be talking about financial.
So my name's Ian Clark. I'm born in Ireland, but I've lived in Uganda over 30 years. I first of all came out with Church Mission Society, the Anglican Mission. And the first project that I did with my wife and family, we started a hospital in Luwero after the war in 1988. This called Chiwoko. And we ran that project about 5 or 6 years. Subsequent to that, I came back to Kampala, this time just as a private person, and with the aim of starting a hospital. About 7 years ago, I had developed the hospital to a level where I had taken in some minority partners before then, about 10 years ago. And then I was approached by a large company in Mauritius, which wished to extend a medical footprint, a healthcare footprint in Africa. And they bought a majority shareholding of the hospital. So there was a change about 6-7 years ago when that released some cash for me and I was able to diversify into some other businesses. So I said, let me develop something in the agribusiness sector.
And of course it's nice being on a farm to go back to your roots. By having the farm, I'd like to do several things. One is have it as a demonstration farm that the local farmers can see it and see, oh, you can grow potatoes, you can grow corn, you can grow coffee well. We've started on the outgrower scheme with David, whom you met, which I hope that will improve livelihoods. So this farm is also an attempt to make the Ugandan coffee, Robusta, good quality, traceable, Robusta, and hopefully push the price up a bit.
When I was in Ireland before I came here, I was a general practitioner. I was fairly well off. I was middle class and so on. When I came out to the Luwero Triangle, I had to start over again. Always you have to be prepared to start from very little again. And when I came back to Kampala, another small clinic starting again. And let's not forget, in Africa, you need to be there. You need to know what's going on. So you need to get your system of governance, your system of corporate governance, on those sort of things.
We've started in the last couple of seasons to grow seed potatoes, and we have, do you see that shed there that's kind of white? It's got a green roof. Yes. It's a cold store. So we built this cold store, which means that even for ware potatoes, we don't have to sell them when everybody else has them. So this year, for example, we harvested the ware potatoes, but we kept them in the cold store. And then when the potato prices were going up, then we sold them. Yeah, well, I sort of got into chickens like a lot of people get into these things, and then you're like, oh, why did I get into this? And it actually took me quite some time to get, all these things are quite scientific. So if you're not getting about 80% lay from your chickens, 80% and beyond for a certain number of weeks, and you're not feeding them, I think it's 120 grams per day, then you're probably not making any money. It's not anything wonderful. But the side effect is the chicken manure. Now, if you're really pure organic, you're supposed to have cow manure, but I'm not pure organic. and the chicken manure, there's plenty of it, and it works. It works. So I'm happy to have that cycle where I'm able to use things, and it's okay. It's settled down into something that, as they say, cleans its nose, but it's not highly profitable.
I didn't want all my eggs in one basket. We had, proper books of accounts. We had good governance. We had a good organisation. Of course, then someone who's looking for an investment may come and say, "Can I invest?" At that point, someone can say, "No, I don't want investment. I'm going to just keep doing this myself." And so it was the right time for me to sell. And yet at the same time, I didn't leave. I stayed on as chairman for about 4 or 5 years after that. Still stay on the board. I'm still a shareholder. But now the hospital has got professional management and people, and I'm not so much involved apart from board meetings. It's been nice for me to be able to both diversify and then also invest in something like the land where I see the changes on a weekly basis.
NSSF.
I've been getting quite a number of questions asking me what is your benefits, and today we want to divulge a little bit in those in the things that constitute your benefits. Good morning once again. We'll start off with a prayer. I'll ask Anna Maria Sanyu to just pray for us, and then we get started.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us both online and physically. Let us humble ourselves and pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the people that are in the room and those that are listening to us online. Father, King of Glory, we thank you for life. We thank you for the program that we are introducing today. We pray that it benefits so many and changes the nation at large. We pray that whatever we share today, it is taken in good faith, applied, and bears fruit. We pray all this through Lord. Amen.
Amen. Good morning again. Good morning for those of us in the room. Good morning. Yes, it's a bright day, bright with rain. So good morning. It's been a lot of dust. For us who come from the village, we are grateful for the rain, because when we are driving through today, no one can say your car was not washed. So good morning. My name is Mboa Apollo, and I'm your host today. I'm also part of the team that works on the financial literacy section at NSSF. And this morning we are having 30 of you employers in this room, and quite a number. The time I switched off, it were about 100 of us, to talk about benefits. Benefits. This is the language of the HR people, and that is why we have HR people in the room. But before we begin, I'll just do a small exercise. Kindly turn to your neighbor and introduce yourself without your organization. It's something that we have been told to always do. Introduce yourself without saying your organization, but put some weight on yourself. So say, I am this person, and don't include the organization. Because as we go on, you will find out that the organization is not a constant. For those of you online, kindly, if you can share with us those introductions online and we know who you are without your organization, then as we get started. Thank you so much for making time to attend to this. If the back office team is kind enough to share that our program, I just want to let you know on how we are going to move. We've had our opening prayer. For the team in here, as we have been here since 7:30, so you know what we've been doing. But we have had our opening prayer. We're going to have opening remarks. Those are my remarks. And then I'll call in Geoffrey to tell us about NSSF. But not just the NSSF, you know, but NSSF in relation to what we are doing. We are here today. We'll call in Patrick to address us about our purpose as the fund. Then we will have a brief of YoBenefits, just unpacking it further. But as we go on from the opening remarks up to that point, we are going to be introducing bits and parts of those. You've been watching the videos, and that's all part of YoBenefits. We'll then have a note from our partners. We are running this particular event here in partnership with Stanbic Bank, this particular event. And one of the things where we will be appealing to you is, can we run these events in partnership with you as the employer? Then we'll have our keynote address from our keynote speaker, Florence. Someone yesterday was asking me, what's her title? And I told them, put keynote speaker. I realized that you may not find a designation when you cross over. So we need to get used before we cross over. But she's here to really tell us about the wonderful things that are when you cross over. And well, for those of us who are in the room, when you look at Florence, you will want to cross over. Florence, please wave to the people. That is the 16-year-old I'm talking about. And then we'll have a little bit of Q&A, and then we'll depart. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited about this program. We've been having quite a number of programs, but we have never really focused on people above 44 years. Why 44 years? 44 years, if the biggest qualification, the primary qualification for getting benefits out of NSSF is age. All you have to do is grow old and you get your benefits. And for a long time, we have not really focused on people who are growing old. If you are 44 years, you are now in the bracket where you can see your money, starting with 20%. When you clock 50, you can also leave your job and come and pick all your money. When you clock 55, regardless whether you're still in the job, you can still come and pick that money. And we want to focus on you. We want to give you special focus. Why? Because for a long time, we have been using the statistic that you pick money, and then in 2 years, you cannot account for that money. But what have we done as NSSF? What have we done as employers? What have we done as financial services providers? Have we actually given you the benefit of understanding what your options are? So today, if the back office team is kind enough to just give me my 2 slides, and then I invite Geoffrey. So today, we want to start that journey of an intimate discussion. But this discussion starts with the numbers, and I have left out some of the numbers because as the team comes after me, they will be giving you more numbers. At NSSF, we believe in God, we trust. Everyone else must bring numbers. So if anyone is telling you to do something, ask them to give you the numbers. If they tell you rabbit farming is the way to go, let them bring the numbers. If they tell you to believe in God, don't ask for numbers. That one we trust. But everyone else should bring the numbers. And in 2023, I'll just want to share with you, as NSSF, we project to pay out 1.5 trillion. That is money that is going to leave NSSF and go to its owners, rightful owners. And I think we ought to give it a pause and say, while this money is finding a home, it's finally going home, can it count? Because this is 1.5 trillion. What we need in the parish development model is 1 trillion to change this country. What NSSF is getting from its coffers, of course you already your money, to its members is 1.5 trillion. So add that with parish development model, we should be going at 72,000 of us. Now, I say of us because you are here in the designation of your as an employer. 72,000 staff are going to be leaving employment, or they are going to stay in employment, but they are going to come to NSSF to take their benefits. Now, if you are employing a staff who has taken their benefits, we should be interested in getting them get better, because if they have taken their benefit, probably they should even come to you and say, with the money I have, you could even give me a salary decrement. So this is in for both of us. 72,000 of them are going to be paid. There are about 30,000 employers that we are talking to. Today, 30 of you are in this room, another 100 are in that room, and we are saying, what is it that we can do together? Because 30,000 of you hold the people who are going to take 1.5 trillion. And we are coming to you and saying, how do we prepare these people together? And of course, these numbers, you are part of the entire 49 million. Now, 49 million people are looking at the 72,000 as the privileged. But does it count? So ladies and gentlemen, those are the numbers. And if I go to the next slide, please. When we did a survey, 44% and 27% of the people told us they were fully ready to receive their benefits. They had a plan. That's what our survey says. Before they take their benefits, we ask them, do you have a plan? Are you ready to spend it? And the survey is telling us, yes. 16% of those, only 16% of those have had a conversation about money. So our paradox is, if 44 and 27% of, collectively, that's about 70%, if they are ready to take their money, if they are fully prepared, how are they being prepared? Who is preparing them? Because they didn't have the money discussion with the employer, they didn't have a money discussion with NSSF, they didn't have a money discussion with their bank, but they are taking money. Who is preparing them? And I'm saying, let's step up. Let's step up. When we go, do you have a plan of that money? About 79% say they have a plan. So 79% of the people about to receive 1.5 trillion say they have a plan. Now, maybe our concern now should be on the 20% that say don't have a plan. But for me, even this 70%, what's that plan? And it will seem like it's an overreach. It will seem like it is it's kajanja. Why are you asking me about my money? It is money I have grown by myself. NSSF has grown for me. It is my money. But I think they will appreciate if you can guide them. So ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Today we are going to interrogate these stories. We are going to talk about these stories. How can we place ourselves in the lives of our staff? How can we as NSSF place ourselves in the lives of our members? How can we place ourselves in the lives of the people that work for us, or the people that are going to leave our employment, so that they are ambassadors? And that is what YoBenefits is about. I will be telling you much more about this as we go on, but allow me to invite, and if you are kind enough and you're not eating, please give a hand clap, because this one signs my check. Please give them a hand clap to invite Geoffrey to just lay this in perspective. Welcome, Geoffrey.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me be like Apollo and say this again. Good morning. You know, it's meant to be a vibrant Thursday morning, so give me some vibe. You know how confident you are while speaking is largely dependent upon how vibrant the audience is. So good morning again. My name is Geoffrey Waiswa Sajabi, and I'm exceedingly proud that we are speaking with you this morning. I am meant to speak about the obligations of an employer in regard to NSSF. But I think we've spoken about this topic quite often, that the few minutes I have, I would not like to speak a lot about your obligations to NSSF, because you know these too well. So I would simply like to spend a bit of time to address your own obligations as employers to your own employees. And that's what we're trying to do. And it's not accidental that the majority of people in this room are people from the HR departments, because you're the people that are in charge of the well-being, of the safety of your employees. When you look at the numbers, it is obvious that quite a number of people will be qualifying for their benefits this year and in the years to come. But the key question is, beyond an employer religiously saving for your employees, what more can you do? I mean, it's not enough that when I'm retiring, I've got 1 billion. Have you helped me? Have you prepared me that when that time comes and I'm accessing my money, I am ready, I can put good use that money? And I would like to welcome my boss, Patrick. You're most welcome. So we've got an obligation as employers. What we're trying to do at the NSSF is to say, look, we can extend financial education to your employees. But we also find it extremely costly to be able to cover all employees in Uganda. So that's why we want to partner with employers. We want to design programs that can be able to speak to your employees about money. There are not many employers that organize talks about money. No wonder, even when you increase people's salary, they keep demanding for more. I mean, it's not a given that people that are doing badly earn little. No. You'll find someone who is earning a lot more than most people, but they still have money issues. And that's where the employer comes in. So as NSSF, we think that's the value that we can bring on the table, but we can cover a lot more people if we can partner with employers. We've built some level of competences internally on some of the topics where our own team can come and speak to your employees. But there are also topics where we rely a lot on external expertise, and that takes a bit of a cost. So we would like to get into a position where we begin to share some of these costs with you, especially if it is for the benefit of your own employees. Because if you don't intervene in their lives when they are still employed with you, they are likely to retire and join the millions that retire into poverty. There's a video of mine that I've also been watching that went viral, where I was talking to people about the trends that have significantly changed in terms of retirement. And I reminded people that many years ago, it was simple enough for you as an African man to have many children. And that was your social security. And you are certain that your children will look after you. But we've seen a significant shift even in that kind of space. That more and more evidence today proves that your children are very unlikely to look after you. In fact, what I keep telling people is that you are likely to even continue to take care of some of your own adult children. Now, if you're not prepared for that kind of scenario and you retire into poverty, then you cannot even be able to look after yourself. But the other key fact is that lifespan has also improved. Our lifespan today is about 64 years of age. It was much lower than that 10 years ago. And what is even worse is that if you make it to 60, your chances of living for another 20 to 30 years are extremely high. Now, if you're going to live 20, 30 years after 60, how much have you saved? How much have you invested that those years would still be exciting years? Because there's nothing as bad as having been an executive in a company for so many years, then you retire, live for another 20 or 30 years, and they are the very worst years that you can actually live. Now, this resonates with you, who is in this room, but also resonates with the person that you've left in office. So we need to organize talks that can capture that kind of stuff to your own employees, because they'll live much longer. They'll live another 30 years after retirement. And those 30 years are not meant to be miserable years. There are key things that people need to begin to plan when they are still working. Even things like, where do you plan to retire? Those things are extremely key. People don't talk about it. Where do you plan to retire to? Those are things that you begin to address when you are still employed. There are people you speak to and they say, no, for me, when I retire, I'm going back to my village. That trend has also changed. How many people retire and leave the city? That number's dropped. In the past, people retired and they went back in the village and stayed on their farm. People are no longer going back to the village. If you must continue in your retirement to stay in the city, you need to have enough money to sustain you in the city. Because the years that you lived in the city, you had a job, you had an income. But for argument's sake, let's imagine you really want to go back to the village. You also need to begin to plan it now. You don't just go back accidentally. And how do you plan such a thing? If your intention is that when I retire, I'll go back to the village, then I begin to participate in community activities in my village when I'm still working. Because if you've disappeared from your village for 30 years, you've never gone back. People never see you. You don't participate in the burials of people there. Then 40 years down the road, you go back. You'll die so fast in that village because you'll have no friends. People don't know you. I keep joking with my big brother that I intend to go back to the village. So what I do today, in my village there is a book, so they put an amount of money. So they say every time a person dies, if you are employed, you contribute 20,000 shillings. If you're not employed, meaning the guys who are living in the village, you bring 3,000 shillings. So what I do, even when I'm unable to participate in the physical, burial, I make sure there is enough money in my book. So the LC keeps ticking off every time a person dies. And they say, oh, Sajabi also sent Mabogo. So people know that I'm actually actively involved. Why? Because my long-term plan is that I don't want to stay in Kampala. So I'm working on it now. When there are community initiatives in the village, the first person to call me is my mother. And she says, they are fundraising money for ABCD. Can I put your name? And I say, please put my name. So everyone knows that I'm also participating. So for you, if you plan to go back to your village, but you're not participating, how will you go back? How will you fit in? Because some of the reasons why people die very fast is just company. If you don't plan to go back to the village, then you invest in town here, make your friends in town, participate in activities in town. But if your intention is like mine, then begin to participate in what is taking place in your village. You plan to retire, there are certain costs that perhaps by the time you plan to retire should have been covered. One time I was having a chat with a member of the fund who, for all reasons, was a top executive, had more than 2 billion shillings. Now, by the way, we've got some members. Some of them might be in this room. If you are a billionaire, you want to put up your hand. So this member had more than 2 billion Uganda shillings. They had worked for some international companies. They were staying in Naguru. They were getting even money that was meant to be rent. Yeah, it was part of their salary. They were paying top dollar to stay in some of the, fantasy apartments. He retires, and the only money he has is NSSF, more than 2 billion. But he had never built, not in the village, not in Kampala. So when we're having a conversation, he comes with plans, architectural plans. He now wants to build a dream house in the village and also wants to build a dream house in Kampala. And we're having a conversation, and I'm telling him, look, so if this is the only money you have, how much return are you going to get from this dream house in the village? Zero. And how often are you going to be using that house anyway? Then we went to the Kampala house. Again, the same question. In your retirement, what are some of the biggest costs that you're likely to incur? And so if you put up a dream house in Ntinda or anywhere of more than 1 billion shillings, how much return is it going to give you in your old age? Now, by the time we're done with the conversation, he came to the realization that perhaps building a house is not necessarily the biggest sign of achievement. And if you've not achieved it at a certain age, perhaps you are safer not building one at all. You can still live a happy, meaningful life even without owning the house in which you sleep. Because the land that this fellow wanted, you know, if for your entire life you've stayed in Naguru and Kololo, and I'm speaking to some of them here, it is extremely difficult for you to go and buy land in Seta, to go and buy land in Nansana. That is not your kind of place. And I'm not saying those places are bad. Those places are good for us who have been raised there and we stay there every day. For you, for your life to be meaningful, you still need to stay in the environment that you've been accustomed to. So this fellow was looking for land close to town, quite expensive. So he would have spent another 1 billion perhaps just building. So when we sat down, we did the numbers. And so we said, look, so if a 20-year government bond by that time was going for almost 15% or 15.5 after tax, okay? And this guy was to invest about 1 billion. If you can do the math, at 15%, how much money would that be per year? If I put 1 billion? About 150 M, right? So this fellow ended up staying in a nice apartment near Acacia Mall, where he's paying about 2.5 million per month. But the money that is generating per month is close to 20 million, meaning he can still afford to live in the kind of place he would like to live and live there longer without spending his entire savings on trying to own a house at 60 years of age. There are some dreams that if they failed, you must adjust. And no, for me, I didn't do this, I don't have to do it if it's going to take my entire savings. Now, this person is still living a fantastic life. They didn't have to build, but their cash flows are extremely high. If they're getting about 20 million every month, are they not better than you that is living in a huge bungalow and you can hardly have 1 million shillings in your pocket? You live a very big house and every person says that fellow is extremely rich, but you know what you're going through. So some dreams, when we were much younger, there were things that we wanted to become. But as reality sets in, you begin to adjust. But for me, the question is, for your own employees, who is talking about the things? Okay? Things like just lifestyle changes. Today you are living a certain kind of lifestyle. How many of us will afford to live exactly the same lifestyle when we retire? How many of us? And one of the best ways to begin to look into that possibility is today, if you did an audit, a self-audit, and you are still earning a salary, what percentage of the salary that you are earning today is money that you can earn on your own? If you're earning 20 million today as your salary, okay? How much more are you earning outside salary compared to what you're earning at your job? So will you be able to maintain that same lifestyle? There are people that retire and even have a better lifestyle than they had while working. But the majority have a worse lifestyle. You cannot maintain it. There are decisions that sometimes we need to make when we're still working. You are given 1 billion by NSSF. You've never done business before, never. Then you get all of it and say, I am going to start rearing goats. You have no knowledge at all in how goats are reared. And as soon as you put your 1 billion, some illness comes and all the goats die. And the chances are high that there is no insurance for goats. Maybe there are not many insurance schemes that are likely to have a product to insure your goats. You've never run a supermarket, you get your 1 billion, you say, my dream was always to own a supermarket. Let me open up a huge supermarket. And then all your money is gone because you're doing something that you've never done before. But above all, you've not even been educated. We run some classes where we team up members with people that are involved in the actual businesses. So you say, for me, I want rare goats. We can take you to a farm and you stay there for 1 month to learn from a person that is doing it. And guess what happens? When some members finish that sort of orientation, they come and say, no, I don't want goats. Okay? You say, for me, I'll go back to Mbarala and look after my cattle. In that old age, if you've never looked after cattle, your own cattle may kill you. You don't know the magic of looking after what? But I've got some buddies as well who come from the West. When I interact with them, some of them keep cattle as a cultural thing. If you listen very well to some of them, they are not making any money. Some of them actually send their salary to pay the fellows who are looking after their cattle. There are very few people that are doing cattle as a business that is generating money. Most people look after cattle because my grandfather looked after cattle and it's a family thing. Now you get your 1 billion, your 100 million, and all of it goes into cattle. But do you have the skill? Do you have the experience? Do you have the talent? Will you have the energy to supervise, to check those things? Again, for most people, this kind of information, they never get it when they are still employed. This is the kind of stuff that we want to be able to partner with you and actively support your own employees. I was chatting with the neighbor that I sat with about some of our own experiences, and she will share. But majority of us, the only investment we know is real estate. So as soon as we get money, the only thing we can do is build a house. There's someone we met who wanted us to help them to get a buyer. Because they retired, we paid them money. They said, let me build apartments. Halfway, the money was finished. So the apartments are roofed, but they're a shell. So you didn't even do your numbers well. Now you must sell. You need actual financial support to guide you on what kind of investments you can undertake and at what age. These are conversations that we believe that when we partner with you, we can begin to have with your own employees. One time we hosted a speaker, I think in this very room, and he was talking about even decisions that we make at family level. At what age are we having children? That is also a trend that has changed. I think our parents used to marry very early. My own mother married at the age of 14. So by the time she was 50, all of us were very big. Today, because of our career, sometimes you say, no, I want to first finish my PhD, because if I get a man, it's likely to disturb my possibility of getting a PhD. Now, by the time some people finish the PhD, they are 45. Then your firstborn comes at 48. Okay? So you are retiring and you have kids in nursery, you have kids in P2, you have kids in P3, and then you are retiring. And so you retire with huge costs. Again, the only way you can help your own employees is when the things are discussed early. It doesn't help to have this kind of conversation with a person who already has, a 2-year-old at 50. Because then, it's coming a bit late. But if you have these talks early, people can know that you can actually juggle career and family, and so get some of the things out early, except of course if it's absolutely not avoidable. Because one of the sweetest things that I admire about some people, including some people that I work with but whose names I will not mention, is when they are still working and they are telling you they are going for the graduation of their child, and that is the only child in what? In school, and you're like, wow. Then when they are telling you that, you are looking at your own situation. And you're looking at your 2-year-old and you're saying, wow, I should have known this earlier. Then we had a brutal guy who was even talking about things like divorce and other things. And these are topics that are hard-hitting, that sometimes we don't want to even hear about them. And he told us that, look, retirement, 60 years of age, 65 years of age, is not the right time for you to be saying, I'm now divorcing. So you're 60, you're divorcing, and now you're getting a girl who is 30 years of age. She'll want to get children. So imagine a 70-year-old man is changing diapers. Something that you completely forgot. And that is very common with us men, especially. So this guy challenged us and said that if you've got valid reasons why you think you can't be with your partner long term, make the decisions early. Okay? So, if you cannot avoid, then make some of these calls early. Don't wait to be 65 and then you are divorcing, and at that time you also want to get a new what? Wife. In fact, he made us laugh when he said that if you've stood your challenges in marriage for the last 30, 40 years, then for the sake of a happy retirement, stick with your wife and husband and take each other through. But you divorce at that age and you begin to have children. By the way, for the women, quite common if you look at the evidence, it is common to find women who have either divorced or whose husbands passed on, and they don't remarry. And they stand their own and raise their children. Now, for us men, we are wired differently. We will die very fast if we don't. We will die because we've not, I think society has not taught us to look after ourselves. Somehow our wives pick after us. There are men you'll ask in this room, if their wives just went away for a week, you can't even find where the things for the children are. Then that's when you begin to realize, this woman plays a very big role here. But at what point do you make these decisions? At what point do you want to have children? Do you want to retire when they're just starting, school? Or you can change that. When I was telling people that you might even support some of your children in your old age, part of it is informed by the fact that for many of us, these kids have come late. So even by the time we retire, many of them will still be with us. Or even if they have gotten jobs, perhaps they will not be earning enough to be able to sustain themselves. Again, if these conversations are not held early enough, then we are not supporting our members. But like I said at the beginning, these things are costly. That's why we need to partner with you such that we do it as a team and support your own employees. So we hope that out of the partnership that we're launching today, we can reach more and more people as NSSF, that as employers you can also make it cheaper, because even when we can do this for every employer, we might not reach every single employee. If you feel this benefits your employees, you should be able to also invest. You should be able to meet some of the costs. If we can then arrange these talks and have them with your own employees. I think as I come towards the end, my final, word, of course, is to say thank you to the employers in this room because you've been committed to making your payments into the fund. We don't take that for granted. But it's not sufficient to just pay. Even as you pay this money religiously every month, how much more can you do such that at the time when your employer accesses that money, they are better prepared to use that money? It should bring you exceptional pride as an employer if when people retire from your place, they are able to continue living a decent life. But if majority of your employees become poor as soon as they leave, then perhaps you never did enough. It is not enough to just increase salary every year. Even as you make the decision to increase salary, how much are you helping your employees to make better use of that additional money? One time I went to Makerere and I was talking to people that are professors in these matters. And many of them also were just shocked by some of the numbers that we shared. How much can we help our own staff? So we challenge you to partner with the fund to be able to come to your workplaces, to push this into your workplaces. Invite us, work with us. Let's meet some of these costs jointly, and let's have these hard but extremely important conversations with all your staff. Thank you again for coming, and we pray that once we call you upon, you'll support us in this journey. Thank you and God bless you. So having said that, it's now my honor to invite Mr. Patrick Michael Ayota, the Managing Director of NSSF. Please put your hands together for Patrick. And when I speak about people that have planned well, Patrick's name could be on that list. So hopefully he will share a story. Patrick is an exceptional storyteller. So please provoke him to tell you some stories. Patrick.
Thank you, Geoffrey. I think it is fair to say Geoffrey is a hard act to follow. Sometimes because of protocol, I should really come before him because he knows how to kind of spin the stories and bring out the facts. So I'm going to just share. I'm going to pick up a bit of, I appreciate what you guys are doing, what we expect to accomplish. One, to really give you that personal motivation to help your employees basically get on this saving journey. But then two, I want to pull back and kind of take you on a national level, why it's critical that we do save. And if we are ready with the slides, it is there. So if we are ready, Geoffrey says that I know how to tell stories. I'm not sure whether I do, but, so that is what we need to do. I will just start with a simple thing. This is our purpose we got, why we exist as NSSF, to make lives better by making savings a way of life. And COVID showed us that if you didn't have any savings, and what Geoffrey just talked about, if you reach retirement and don't have any savings, you actually will have a hard time. So we make that, we're very purposeful about that. That drives us in the things we do. Let me give you some numbers, and he may have shared this with you. We got about 720,000 active members. About almost 79% of those have balances of 10 million shillings and below. And about only 6% have balances of 50 million shillings and above. Now, that is a factor of two things. One, of our own low wages in the country. I'll share that with you. The other part of it is the non-compliance bit that our members do not. Now, he said something very interesting. You reach the age of 55 and you retire. Let's say you've got 20 million shillings in your account. Your lifespan, according to the UN now, is 64 years. But there's what's called longevity. In other words, beyond the 64 years, the UN says you live another 15 years. So most likely 78, 79. And that is proof of that. If you go back to your villages today, there are more 70-year-olds walking around than there were 10 years ago. I have uncles who have an uncle, that one I thought was gone, but that guy is like 89 and still going strong. So we're living longer. So you think about the time that officially you retire and you have 20 million shillings, but you have another 25 years in front of you, what do you do in that case? And that's why it's important to look at that. The reason why the amendments were made, they were made so on your own somebody can voluntarily top up, because in there you improve the chances of being able to process that. And let me go back and see. Okay, if you look at that number also, it says we have got, this is a testament to the fund. We've got 44,000 members who are above the age of 60 within the fund. And let me tell you a statistic that's amazing in terms of thanking you members of the fund. At the end of June 2022, we had about 83,000 members above the age of 55 years. In totality, they had about 820 billion shillings. We come to the end of December, then the hearings begin. And our concern is, so we are tracking two numbers. We are tracking voluntary contributions because those guys don't have to give NSSF money. We're also tracking the number of people over the age of 55 and they're leaving the fund. Because then we're trying to ask ourselves, are they leaving because of the hearings that we went through in December, January, February, coming March and April? Surprise, surprise. Same statistics, June 2023, that number has gone to 83,000. The balance they hold is right around 840 billion shillings. So people never left the fund. Even in the midst of all this hearing, there was confidence they had in the fund, and that's a testament. If you look at a voluntary contribution, it actually went up during the months when the hearings were going on, and we hit and exceeded our budgets for that. And we thank our members because they at least trusted the fund, which was really incredible for that purpose. Let me just say, get this. This is your salary number. Now, when we look at our numbers in terms of those active members, it shows that over half of our members are earning less than 500,000 shillings a month. Over half of our members are earning less than 500,000 shillings a month. And only 15,000 of them are earning above 10 million shillings. Those are the numbers that we see, and that's what our economy is doing in terms of what we look at. So I wanted to just share with you, let's see if this can work. Can you move it, please? So let's go back a bit. I want to show something for you. I want to show you the power of compounding. If you can put up the Excel spreadsheet. Apollo, where are you? Is Apollo there? Yes, okay. On that row, on the E, that cell E2, the cell E2, just type the word, just type 500,000 there. Okay, now go to the NSF interest, which is that cell E8, type 5%. Okay. This is a simulation on just somebody who is earning 500,000 shillings. Remember, over half our members earn below 500,000 shillings. So the member earns 500,000 shillings. Of his own, we pay 25,000. The employer, you, put in 50,000 shillings. Every month, he saves 75,000 shillings. This is what happens to that money, assuming NSSF is giving that member 5%. Two major assumptions we've made. That member will never be fired. So he's 30 years now. So we're going to assume for the next 25 years, he doesn't get fired at all. But we'll counter that with the fact that he never gets a salary increment either, to make it as simple as we can. Look at the end of 5 years, he's got 4.9 million shillings. At then 10 years, he's got 11.3 million shillings saved. At the end of 25 years, he's got 43 million shillings. He is just saving 25,000 shillings of his money. And he's got 43 million shillings at the end of 55. Now, many of you will say, wait a minute, I'm 30, 55 is too much, that's too far. Me, I'll die before. I have some good news for you. We've looked at our stats over the last 5 years. the percentage of the money we pay to beneficiaries. In other words, the member passed on, so we have to pay money to the survivors, the beneficiaries, has ranged between 2% and 3% of our payments. It tells me something that if you think of checking out of this earth, or you'll check out this before you're 55, 98% of the chance you're still going to be here. So plan accordingly. You're not going anywhere in terms of that. Now let's just change those numbers. Let's change the 500,000 to 1 million shillings. Actually, go back. Let's put back the 500,000. I just want to show you something, 500,000. Okay, now go down to NSF interest rate. Let's say we've given you 8% on average. You see what happens to that number? You're still saving the 25,000 shillings. But because NSF is able to give you a higher interest rate, now you have got 66 million shillings. And that's the power of compounding. I tell guys that if you begin to think of NSSF contribution as an investment, think of it this way. You put 25,000 shillings, that very day the government forced the employer to give you 50,000. Now, many of you are in finance here. What percentage return is that? I know, Esther, you should figure that out. What percentage return is that? You put 25,000 shillings, the employer is forced to put 50,000 shillings that very day. And it's yours, by the way, because the employer never has no claim on that money once it has come to our account. The return is 200%. 200% on day one. If you annualize that, that's times 12. That's about 2,400%. There is no business in this country that you can put money in and to give you that return safely. And the key word is safely, because in NSF you never lose your money. Most members come and tell us that, you know what, no, you guys, you've stolen our money, you've eaten our money. I usually tell you this, please go to your statements, print your statements. Look at what you put in, what your employer has put in, what you put in as NSF interest, and tell me if there's some money missing. A lot of people are doing that, speculating that the money was stolen. The best place you can put money in, actually, the NSF, by law, this by law is embedded within the NSF Act. The worst that can happen to your money that you put in NSSF, it will go up by 2.5%. The worst that can happen by law. If you have 100 million shillings at the beginning of the year, and NSSF made so much losses, it can never go down to 99 million shillings, can never go down to 95 million shillings. The worst that can happen, it will go up to 102 million shillings. That's the safety and the guarantee that the law has built in terms of what we do that. So let's just do one more. Let's say, change that number to 1 million shillings. Same assumption. Now look at what happens to your money, 131 million shillings, if those assumptions hold. The point of it is, encourage your employees to save. It doesn't matter how little they save, how little they earn. In fact, go ahead and do something for me. Change that 100 million to 100,000 shillings. Let's say he earns 100,000 shillings. Because sometimes say, no, but these guys are casual. They only earn 10,000 shillings a day or 5,000 shillings a day. Look at that. He is only saving 5,000 shillings every month. But at the end of 25 years, he will have 13 million shillings. And that's the power of compound. It doesn't matter how little somebody's earning. The important point is put aside something, and especially under the law where the employer is forced to more than double what we put in that area. It's important that we get there. Finally, I just want to talk a bit now at a personal level, then I'll go to the national level. Go to the next slide. Something like that, you need to talk to the employees, save, and he's talked about that. Next one, I'm calling it planning. Wills. I know in this room, for us men, the last thing we want to talk about are wills. And you don't know how many times, they said about 92%, I think this was the statistic, 92% of people who leave this earth leave behind no instructions on what should happen to the savings they've made, to whatever they've had. And they leave a mess behind because we have no idea what to do with their properties. Now you may say, but I don't have anything, I only have 2 shirts. Please give instructions for us what you want us to do with the 2 shirts. Now, most people say that I don't want to do it because, you know, it's a curse. And we are so scared, we are so scared of writing a will because the day I write a will, I am dying. I have some good news for you too. My first will was about 32 years ago. I'm not dead. And I keep on writing, I keep on updating it every day. And the first time I actually wrote a will, I was so scared. I mean, it was the hardest thing I had to do. It was so scared. But each subsequent year it has become easier and easier to do. And I'm comfortable with the fact that if something has to happen, I have enough instructions left behind on what to do with what I have. Please, it does not matter how much you have, you don't have, how young, how old you are, write one. Write one. If the best thing to do with the will is write, make 2 or 3 copies, give 2 or 3 friends who you know. Usually should be sealed. Because some people say, hey, if my wife knows I've left her all these things, they may just turn around and kill me. Let me also tell you another good story. If your wife found out you've not left her anything, she might turn around and kill you too. So the point of it is write and leave it to a friend or somebody so you can do that. And then continuously update. You may have written your first will. It happens with even NSSF. You became a member of NSSF when you were still in university. And you had this nice Chile. She's called Eva. You love her so much. So you put her as a beneficiary. But along the way, Eva morphed into Mary. But you never came and tell us that it's Mary now, not Eva. So in your records, we have Eva. In your will, you have Eva. But you moved on. Now you left us with a mess. Or sometimes in NSF, you love your mother so much, you've left your mother there. And suddenly, as things happen, things have changed by them, so you have to update it continuously. Number 3, please leave it where it can be accessible. Remember, the will is read after you're not here. There's a man who wrote a will, went and locked it in a safe. He is the only one who had the code for the safe, and is gone. May not have been written it's because nobody could access now the wills in that. So there are practical things that we need to be able to look at so that we can actually apply that. But I really encourage your employees to write wills. They're easy to do. You can leave it to your past. It's not a complicated piece of paper. You don't even need a lawyer to write a will, by the way. It's not. But just if you need a professional, but encourage your employees to do that. It's one of the things that once you do it the first time, there's this relief you have. You know it's okay. You won't have a problem. Second one that I really want you guys to think about, and this is important for us, and he talked about legacy planning. Many of you may have read this book, for us who read the Bible, Proverbs 13:22. Has an amazing instruction to us. He says, a wise man leaves an inheritance for their children's children. We've always thought that I need to leave an inheritance for my children. But what that verse talks about, leave an inheritance for your children's children. You think about the assets you have today. Will they survive your children to get your grandchildren? Think about most of the tycoons we've had in this country, and they've made money. And suddenly they've gone, and 2 years later there's a fight over the assets they've left behind. And sometimes these assets then are sold by the children who they left behind. Can your assets, can your planning help you plan for your grandchildren? Because that's the instruction from how do you structure it so that your son will not sell all your assets and eat it and forget about his child? And it's important because we begin to think of that. I'm going to tell you something about I have one child. She's 18 years old. She just went to the US for university. So in my mind, I used to live in Atlanta, Georgia. So I said, you know what? So I had a house in Atlanta, nice house. So when I moved back here, I said, Naomi, this will be your house. By the time she came to 13, 14, she's not talking about Atlanta. And I'm carrying a heavy mortgage to keep a house for Naomi. By 13, 14, she's talking about going to New York, going to Paris, she's not to anywhere think about Atlanta. At 16, she's not thinking about Atlanta. By the way, she's not going to Atlanta, she's going to Pennsylvania. So last year, I sold the house because it was killing me and this girl that is not caring about going where? To Atlanta. So I sold the house. Knowing very well that if I left her and she goes, most likely she'll sell the house and whatever she'll do. But now this is the scariest things for some of you guys. You think about this. You raise your child from the village, maybe Nakasongola, he's in Kampala. You still think he or she should behave like somebody from Nakasongola. But you've exposed her to Kampala. You send the child overseas to study, and you still think she should behave like a Ugandan. Why did you send them out? So I've come to this reality that, you know what? This girl has gone to university in the US. She may call me one day and say, Papa, I got a Russian or Ukrainian man or a Brazilian man. And there's a possibility. So I have property here that I'm thinking I'm leaving for Naomi, but she has a Ukrainian man. Now what are the chances she's going to come back to Uganda and take care of these properties for her children? And that's the reality I'm struggling with now, because it's so real. So I have come to the point that no, if I have some land and I leave that land behind, most likely Naomi will come back one day and she may get a rogue husband from Mexico. They sell the thing and go back to Mexico. And doesn't help me in that process. So I have to figure out how to design an inheritance for Naomi that motivates her to come back. Whether she's living in Russia, she's living in Australia, whatever it is, she can come back. If you go back and look at most of the philanthropists, Rockefeller is an interesting one. Rockefeller lives around 1923. He was an oil man, oil boss. He set up a trust. Now, the trust laws in Uganda are not yet very good, but we're working on that. And there were instructions. He says, okay, I'm going to put all the money. He liquidated every asset he had. And in Uganda today, think about, some of you have land, some of them. Liquidate it, you can and put it in a bond. Today, a bond in Uganda is 16%. Let's say you're able to sell all your properties you have. Okay, leave one house that you're going to live in, okay? You sell it all, you have maybe $1 billion shillings, 500,000 million shillings, you buy a bond. $1 billion shilling bond means that each year, that bond will give you 160 million shillings. Are we together? Let's say you buy a 20-year bond. That means for the next 20 years, you have a guarantee of 160 million shillings. Guarantee. So my thing is, okay, now I can do this. 160 million shillings is right around $50,000. Naomi, there's $50,000 a year in Uganda. For you to get it, you need to come here and collect it from here. I think it doesn't matter where she's living. She could be living in Ukraine, where it is. $50,000 will motivate her to come and visit this country once a year to collect that money for the next 20 years. And I can even do it where it says, let's reinvest 20,000, but let's reinvest the 20,000 in the bond, you collect $30,000. Now I'm planning, so at the end of 20 years, that bond has doubled. Now she can leave that money to her children with some instructions. For you to get the 30,000, you need to go visit Papa's home in Nyem Tororo, so that you cannot do it. What's my point? Begin to plan. People, that long-term planning helps you. What Jeff was talking about, we sometimes think that we need the land, we need the house, but when you look beyond you, it may not serve the purpose for which God wants to do. Finally, there was an interesting young man, actually not a young man, he was married to an MP. He came and told Patrick, I need to borrow 4 million shillings. He said, why? I have a truck, a lorry, it broke down, I need to fix that truck and lorry. I said, fine. Then I remember, he's my village mate. I said, but you used to have land in Tororo. Do you still have that land? He said, yeah, I have the land. How much is it? It's 10 acres. So I said, how much is an acre of land? At that point, it was 6 million shillings. I said, why don't you sell 1 acre, you get the 6 million shillings, and fix the truck? I'm living for my children. I said, okay. How many do you have? I said, 3 boys. Where are they? They live in Kreka here. He says, you know, they even finished the university, they're living in Kreka. So I said, when did they go to the village? They went to the village before COVID, around 2017. So these 3 boys finished university, have not been in the village for the last 6 years. and you're keeping 10 acres of land for them. Do you know what's going to happen when you die? They just go and sell that land and need the money. So why don't you sell 1 acre and do that? I mean, and it was very hard for him to even, and I didn't give him the money. I said, no, I can't give you money. You just go sell your acre and see. What's my point? We hold on to a lot of things. Sometimes you have land that you left in a swamp. In Kampala, you raise this child in Kampala, and you're thinking that when you're gone, this child is going to go back and dig in a swamp. That's not the reality. And so we have more assets than we think. In fact, one of the most interesting things they say that in Uganda, it's not that we don't have savings. We do. But our savings are different forms that we have. You have land, you have a piece of, whatever it is. But you can liquidate this and help you in that process because it frees you and looks at the reality that you have. So that's kind of so things that you can discuss with the employees in that case. Finally, from a national perspective, I'm going to give you something that will shock you. Today, our GDP is right 180 trillion shillings. That's the GDP of Uganda. NSSF today is about 18.6 trillion shillings. So NSSF Uganda is about 10% of Uganda's GDP, long-term domestic savings. By the entire country, long-term domestic is 11%. NSSF is about 10.5% of that. If you look at countries that have developed, whether it is South Korea, Malaysia, Singapore, China, Taiwan, and of recent, Vietnam, there's a correlation between the growth of their GDP and the long-term domestic savings they have as a debt. Those countries have become Asian tigers when their long-term domestic savings hit around 25 to 30% of GDP. Why? That means they can use their long-term domestic savings to drive their development agenda. The World Bank just says, we are not going to fund you guys, we are not going to give you any money for new funds, and we are Uganda, we all panic. Only the president is brave enough to write a very strong letter back. But we are all there panicking because we are completely relying on foreigners to help us develop. The reason why we have to save more as a nation, it allows us to become independent. And think about, it may not be your generation, but the generation to come, that we can help the next generation become more independent in how they deal with the rest of the world, because at a minimum you can leverage what you have internally to drive your development agenda without having to rely on foreigners. That we miss it because I'll tell you something that was interesting. Bujagali, 2003. That was a negotiation with Bujagali. They wanted to set up Bujagali. The cost of Bujagali was 203 million shillings. That was the budget. But we're borrowing everything. So there was an American company called ESC, we borrowed 100 million shillings. Then the government went around borrowing from different entities, the World Bank and so on, to get the $103 million. But then suddenly the activists rose up, the environmentalists. No, Bujagali is going to mess up with the environment. And it took about, from 2003, it took about 7 years before we could get funders to come on board. By that time, the cost had gone to $550 million. Bujagali was commissioned in 2013. 10 years after we had first wanted to do it, 10 years later, the cost of Bujagali was $910 million after commissioning. But that's not the cost. There were so many blackouts between 2003 and 2013. The World Bank estimated that the cost of blackout in Uganda was costing the country about $2.2 billion. So for the 10 years we had blackout, it cost us $22 billion and not $910 million. Just because we couldn't find $103 million to fund it in 203. And that's why it's important that as a nation, as a country, we actually embark on this saving journey, however little it may be, because in there lies actually our future as we do that. On that note, thank you very much. God bless you.
A bigger round of applause. At least if you are not clapping for him, do it for me. He signs my check. So a bigger one. Thank you so much, Patrick. I just need to get, and I was writing notes while he was speaking. Poverty is the lack of options. Poverty is not lack of money, it's lack of options. And what we are saying is, together, us, I picked these notes well, Geoffrey and we are both talking. And we are saying, let's get our employees to get options. Let them get options. Match your employer. I think at one point, and maybe I'm speaking ahead of myself, but as NSSF, we are preparing ourselves to have options for your employer. When you find your neighbor more interested in your life than you are, you get worried. I mean, if you find that your employer is doing twice as much towards your retirement than you need to get worried. And we need to get angry about it, and we need to match. The bit about this is we have somewhere to start. At NSSF, we have the voluntary product. You can match your employer. If your employer is putting the 10% and they're putting your 5%, you can go ahead and get another 5% through voluntary. I think my team will give you some forms there. And you start matching your employer. Now, this is the message, one, we are giving to you as an employer, but also you as a person. Because at some point, you're also going to exit that company. So, match your employer. The will. Something I need to mention about a will, and please, as NSSF, we have done a session about this with the Administrator General. I will share a link. We've had the Administrator General address some of these things. At a certain, you are free to will everything to anyone you want, apart from the marital home and a few provisions. So, for Patrick, I'm just here telling you that you are free to will to anyone that you know that is around you, works with you, starts with a name A, anyone. You are free to will, and don't worry. But we have done something about wills, about trusts. The trust law in Uganda is still, but I also know NSSF has taken up some work on the trust law. It's still not that great. It's just doing something around land only, but I know sooner or later we will be able to provide some other things. So good morning, everyone. Good morning. Geoffrey has attempted and has actually delivered on enticing you that we need to do these things together. You and the employees. So every time now I say we, it is us. We are in this together. Your employees, your staff, my members. They are the same people. Much as they are going to be with you later, they are my members before they are your staff. They will be my members after they are your staff. But we are in this journey together. So allow me to just, if Adrian, you are kind enough to please continue with my presentation. What does your benefit look like? Now that we are in this together, what are the things, what are the activities? And this is just a snapshot. What are the things we can do together? And after I do this, I'll bring in the HR expert, a veteran, who will just wrap this up. An independent mind. We don't want to say, because me, I'm paid to say these things, but this one is speaking from experience. But what are those things we can do together? So YoBenefits is an acronym for Year of Your Benefits. We want to reach persons in the year they're getting their benefits. That is the start. After that, we can go further down. Because the best time to actually speak to someone about their retirement money is at age 7. But we didn't get that chance. So what can we do at age 44? So let's start with age 44. They are going to get midterm access. Can we start asking those questions? Let's go to age 54 and tell them, in this year, you are getting your benefits, or you are eligible to get your benefits. What are the options you have? As my team gives out, one of the things we are going to equip you with tools. And one of the tools is a catalog. A catalog is, we try to go through the different options, generally speaking. What are those things someone can actually invest in? And who should they speak to invest in those things? Because everyone is an expert. In Uganda, everyone is an expert in money. We usually go to our pastors, we go to our elders, the ladies, we go to our sisters, the gentlemen, we go to the ones supporting the same team as us, and then ask for financial advice. But we are saying, let's change that. Can you start by telling your employee, can you be the you are the HR, can you be the starting point where someone is about to retire or expects to get money? Can you have information on what the possibilities? And we are happy to give you such things. So if Adrian, you are kind enough to go to the next slide, please. This we have said and we will not really emphasize. And this is what the trend looks like. This is just NSSF members. When we went to them, only 11% looked for advice after they got their money. After they got their money, only 11% took a breath and said, let me ask. 16% came to us before. Usually those can come to you before. When someone has not gotten the money, they probably will frequent. But after they get the money, they will not. Just go to the next slide. I want to just go to the nitty-gritties. Just go to the next slide. These are places where they're getting their advice, but so what is the YoBenefits message? What are we saying? I don't know why this microphone, I feel constrained. But what is it that we need to talk about? What is it that we need to talk about in this, our engagement with our staff, the ones that are yet to get money? What are those conversations we need to have? One, can we get them benefits ready? Most of them come to NSSF, and the day they come to NSSF is that they start counting the number of days till when they get their benefits. Yet they have come and their national ID has different names. Can you start preparing them? Because at the point when you have been told you are eligible to get money, but then you are held back by a certain legal requirement, it sort of feels like we are taking forever. So can we start this preparation way before? Can we also ask the questions, are you really ready to take this money? I was speaking to a lady last week, and she told me, last time you told me I wait for interest, but now the interest is coming. Can I now take the money? Then I asked her, have you answered those questions I asked? Yeah, I think let me take the money, then I can first put it there, then I start working out. And I told her, with all due respect, you are not ready to take your money. When you can't answer certain questions, what are you going to do? What's your objective? What is the cash flow looking like? And she was telling me, but I even don't need money. I am well off. There's even another payment I'm expecting. There's some inheritance coming in. She was just taking the money because it was available. So can we, in this conversation we are saying, can we ask those questions? Can we lead them into purposeful living? Ladies and gentlemen, I have not retired. I'm not retiring soon, but I have worked around people who have retired. This morning, Francis was correcting me and said, stop calling us retired. We are redeployed. You can struggle to find purpose when you do not have an address where you report to every morning. Not so many people, when we go through our database, can we pick up the phone and say, let's call this person. How do you become purposeful while you are in your retirement? How is it that in all this room, there are accomplished HRs, but we picked up our, from our address book and we called Florence because she's living with purpose. How do you gain your staff, our members into that? Health and wealth. Patrick has talked about this. Wealth, legacy, all that. Because sometimes it's not about the money. You have the money, but then you don't have the health. We want to make savings such a prestigious thing that people actually fight to save because they are seeing you aging with wealth, aging with health. But if you are aging with wealth and not healthy, people will say, let me eat my money now. Let me eat it before I get there because that guy is now eating through a tube. So that's the message we want to. And we are happy to customize this message for every workplace. Work with you and get the people that resonate well. If it's doctors, which doctors can we get? If it is lawyers, which lawyer can we get? Just to put this message into perspective. So if we go to the next slide, what are the activities that we envision here? And please, one, at the workplace, can we be intentional and reach out? Everyone who clocks, depending on the people in this room, we went by the number of employees you have above 44 years. the 30 of you in this room. The rest online, but the 30 in this room, you have a huge number of people about to retire. And when we end this, we hope we can kick off something for those people. Because those people are in what we are calling the red zone. They in the golden zone. They are getting their money soon. So can we come up with initiatives? We are happy to guide. We are happy to, it's your program. We are happy to come in and provide resource. We are happy to come in. Because the best thing, the most expensive thing is the time. And you will provide us that platform. Once you can allow those people an hour in a month or 2 hours in a month to just sit and talk about money with experts, different experts that resonate with them, you would have gone a long way. So I'm hoping that when we leave this room, you as the HR persons, you can start that program. Number 2, town halls. You may not be able to do that at your workplace, but we are coming to every branch where NSSF has a branch. We are coming there and saying, blocking off one of the hotels there, and then asking you to send those people to us. So can you, if you can't do it at the workplace, maybe they are dispersed all over the country, can you allow them come and attend these town halls? We are going to share with you. Tomorrow we are in Masaka, and we have asked the employers in Masaka to send their employees. In that town hall, we are able to bring the likes of Patrick, the likes of Francis Kamlega, the likes of Florence, so many people who I can't tie their shoes. And they are able to share with you their experience. We are not saying they are the best in this, but with their experience, you probably will be able to form your own opinion. So please send those stuff, send our members to us. Number 3, and I'm going away. As NSSF, starting this month, we have started engaging them. When you clock 44 years, every month you will receive an SMS from us. And we haven't even given them an option to opt out. It was a legal requirement that you need to give them the option to opt out. But we are saying, no, you are not opting out, because we want to remind you that you are about to get your money. Do you have a plan for it? And every month on the 30th, they receive a message, a different message. You can do the same. They will also receive an email. If you are 54, if you are 44, different, customized to you, depending on the length of time you are left to pick your benefits. But can we work on this together? Sometimes I will send the SMSs, I will send the emails. But imagine if it is you, the HR, sending that email and telling him, dear Geoffrey, you are 8 months away from receiving your benefits. Have you spoken to a planner about, an investment planner about this? Then the next month, you prompt them and ask them, have you talked to your family about the money that is coming to you? Have you answered the question about where you are going to retire to? For the 8 months, let me tell you, the time when, if they come back to you after they have retired, coming back on those things of saying, contribute for me, bring out those messages and say, I asked you these questions. Did you ever answer them? You are protecting yourself, because people will leave and then come back to you, and then they say, we are the ones who formed this organization, we started it, I am entitled to something. I don't have school fees for my children. You know, I left when I had just gotten twins now. Where will my children, how will they survive? You bring out those messages and you say, these we sent to you. Did you do that? So when I say we are getting into this together, and we need to get our staff, our employee, our member, we need to get them aligned into preparing to make their benefits count. Their benefits need to count. Finally, I'm going away. Webinars, these ones we do, and they are accessible to all of you. I've just shared with you that when you leave this room, we are going to share with you the webinar on wheels. We have done that already. We are collecting as much information from independent minds, not from NSSF. As much information as possible, and we are putting it out there. You want to invest in unit trusts? We have already done. We have an information pack. It's all there on YouTube, and we shall be able to share with you. So if you are challenged and your employees want information, we have already come up with a resource bank. Finally, we are on media. When Geoffrey comes here to talk about the obligation, when you find him on radio talking about the obligation, he will take off 70% of the time talking about you as a person. will talk about you as a person, because 600 and something of us at NSSF are taking care of your money. But when it comes to you, you are just one person. So for us, the job is easy. Taking care of 19 trillion, 600 of us are there, and we are highly paid. But taking care of your 100 million, 50 million, it's a job for one. So it's a very hard job. So we want to equip you with all the information. So we'll use media and all the types of media that we can find. Finally, I've said finally 3 times, but this is finally. Can we brand these people? Can we mark them? I'm giving you this as one of the ways of making them feel precious. When someone clocks a certain age, can you co-brand this with us and you give it to your employee, so that when they are walking around, they say that is the senior. He's going to retire. And everyone will, even when he knows that they know that I am the senior, his actions are different. The way he will carry himself is different. He will not have lunch for 10 minutes, for 2 hours. He knows that he doesn't have that much time, because there is that reminder, visual reminder, and he needs to set an example. He's a beacon. Get together. Let's get together. Let's co-brand them. Let's give them some. You know, they brand me here. When I'm moving around, I cannot do bad manners of go and take number 1 by the road, because I am branded. Not because I'm a good person, but because I am protecting this brand. When you brand this person, give them a pen, give them a t-shirt, give them a book. Give them a catalog. This catalog is going to be available for everyone that gets into that age space. If they are carrying their folders in there, their things, it's already a signal to someone that this gentleman, he's not ordinary. Totally regular. Finally, I decided to stop with this, to finalize with this. What is our objective? Usually we start with what is our objective? And our objective is to reverse that statistic, that 85% of our members get their money, and in 2 years, they cannot account for it. We need to reverse that. Now, before it has been our members, now it is going to be our members, our staff. Because you're also giving them gratuity. We are giving them, NSSF, you're giving them gratuity. You're giving them a package as they go, and they can't account for that. We want to build a financially aware and empowered staff. Let's even leave the member thing, because now we have become one. Our staff should be financially aware. They should be financially empowered. They need to be able to make these decisions. When we are showing some of these numbers, we have over 40,000 people who are above 60 years. They are that financially aware, and they're saying, I know I have money. We have checked on them and said, did you know you have money? He said, yes, I have money, but I don't think I need that money now. They have been that financially empowered to say that that is money. It shouldn't control me. We need to give our members, our staff, and citizens of the country options. The catalog in front of you is about options and options. But I don't want to end this. You know the way the pastors end, and they say we need to make an altar call. If you have been touched by this message, please open that catalog. Open that catalog. I need you to open that catalog. I need you to take off time. You will read the different options. Now, those options, you don't need to start them after. You can start them now. There are also barcodes you can scan, and they take you directly to those particular sign-ups. But particularly today, there is a form in there. Do you all see a form? If you think you can take up the challenge of matching your employer, or at least attempting to match your employer, that they put 200,000, you're going to put 10,000. There is a form in there. All you need to put is your name and correct contact number, and we'll enroll you on voluntary. Don't worry about the needs and everything. Someone is going to get to you when you are in your comfort space, and you can provide us that. So, but if you can't, if you are not ready to, please don't take that form. You leave it here. We need to save these forms for the people who want them. Please don't feel propelled to see that you are, no. If you don't, that's what they call financial empowerment. You say, this one I don't want. I feel I don't want. But I feel like each one of us, if you are still doing 5%, let's lead by example. Allow me to invite, And allow me at this point to invite Sylvia to use 5 minutes to talk about when we are putting this together. Stanbic Bank said, let's lead by example. We are a financial institution. We are Uganda. They will tell you about those things. We are a financial institution, and we need to get into that line where we're talking about options. And we have sent the same call to everyone, all financial providers. Please come and let's take this journey. So allow me to invite Sylvia to use 5 minutes and tell you what does Stanbic have that can be rides with this journey. Then we'll finalize this with our keynote speaker. Please give her a hand clap.
Good morning, everyone. I've been told I have to use 5 minutes. It's quite difficult for me to use 5 minutes, but I'll try. First of all, I just want to thank NSSF for giving us an opportunity to partner with you on this journey. And briefly, I want to tell you about Stanbic Bank. So Stanbic Bank is a member of Standard Bank Group, and Standard Bank is an African bank. And because it's an African bank, our vision or our purpose for which we exist is we want to be part of Africa's growth. So Africa is our home, and we drive her growth. That is the purpose for which we exist. And bringing it back home to Uganda, we believe that Uganda is our home, and therefore we want to drive her growth. So that is our purpose as Standard Bank. And it's no surprise that we're actually here in this room announcing our partnership, not just with NSSF, but also with the employers in this room. So we want to be part of the growth of the employees in Uganda. And that's why we want to be part of this journey. And how are we going to partner? So as Standard Bank, I don't know if my slides are ready, but as Standard Bank, and specifically for personal banking, we have a department in the bank called Employee Value Banking. But for today, I want to announce our partnership with employers and officially introduce what we've called Employer Value Banking. And for us, we believe that for us to be able to retain employees as employers, Standard Bank inclusive, and my fellow bankers in this room and other employers in this room, we have to have a strong employer value proposition for our employees. And that's why we want to partner with you to say, how can we as an institution be able to partner with you to have a compelling employer value proposition for your staff? And our proposition that we'd like to introduce to you in this room is to say, it's basically touching four aspects. But before I go into the aspects, I wanted to pick from where Patrick stopped. He shared with us some amazing statistics about the saving culture in this country. And I picked some statistics this morning, very amazing statistics around savings culture. So Ugandans actually save. About 54% of the employees that work and earn money actually do put some money on the side to save. But also quite interesting is that only 13% of the individuals that save, individuals that earn and also save with financial institutions. Only 13%. They save with formal institutions. And this could be banks, they could be NSSF, they could be microfinance institutions, they could be SACCOs. Only 13%. And that really touched my heart. 46% of adults in Uganda who earn money every month do not save at all. And that is what we want to be able to change as employees and as Standard Bank and as NSSF. Also amazing to say in this room, 6 out of 10 Ugandans who save. You remember the 54%? 6 out of 10 save for consumption. About 25% of Ugandans who save actually do save for investment. It's no wonder that, as my predecessors said, most of the Ugandans who retire do not live long. So today we want to boldly state that we want to partner with the different employers on a journey to bring some of the solutions to the workplace. And like I said, our package is going to revolve around 4 pillars. The first one is what we call live and enjoy. Live and enjoy touches a little bit of aspects around giving some tips to employees on how to earn. Of course, we know that every employee earns a salary, but the tips that we want to be able to offer them is to say, how do you earn a salary, be able to live on that salary and enjoy it, but also be able to put aside some money for investment. And also be able to multiply your earnings from that small salary that you're earning. Without going into the details, I want to emphasize that when we partner with you, that is one of the things that we'd like to unpack for the employees. The second pillar that we will be bringing on the partnership is around enabling employees to be able to pursue their dreams. And in this topic, we'll be unpacking a little bit more about some of the investment options that are available across not just Stanbic Bank, but across all financial institutions. Of course, we do have amazing ones in Stanbic Bank, and we'd like to partner with you on that journey. We'll be talking about lending, responsible lending for investment, and not just for consumption. We'll be talking about some of the solutions that Apollo spoke about on investment in bonds, in treasury bills, in unit trusts, and quite a number of other options. And then we'll also be talking about the third pillar, which is how do you prosper and grow your income. A little bit about savings as investments as well, but then going deeper into some of the partnerships that we've done around bank assurance to be able to offer holistic propositions for the employees. And some of those options are already available in that catalog, but in this partnership, we'll be unpacking them more for the employees. And last but not least is around how do we encourage our employees to be able to preserve and protect wealth. And Patrick mentioned this a little bit earlier when he talked about wills. I'm one of the people who used to fear about writing a will. But now I have one. I keep it with my sister. I hopefully she doesn't die before me. But I do have a will. It's not in a safe. It is well kept in safe hands. But we'll be unpacking this a little bit more to go into how do you protect yourself as an individual, even when you're still at work? How do you protect your money through things like medical insurance? I know some of the employers in this room have medical insurance, but you probably spend money that you earn that you could be saving to treat your ailing father or mother or relative. We'll be unpacking some of the solutions available for the employees to be able to invest in medical insurance solutions available on the market now that they can be used to protect their earnings, but also be able to treat the ailing relatives and other family members. We will be unpacking some of the, still under preserve and protect, we'll be unpacking some of the available solutions that you can explore to protect your properties. For those that access loans, there are already some existing solutions on the market that can be able to protect your family from those loans in case of an eventuality, and quite a number of other solutions available without going into details. So I'm excited about this partnership. We have some members in the room, some experienced and vetted financial fitness trainers. I'm going to ask some of them to stand up for recognition. They're available to take your cards, to partner with you and come and offer the financial fitness academies, speaking about the pillars I've spoken to at your workplaces. I just want to ask James and Alan to kindly stand up for recognition, and they're available for you even after this meeting. So the amazing stuff is that we do this for free. And it's one of those sessions that we come to your workplaces to talk about finances without talking about products. So we're not coming to sell our products, but we're coming to partner with you to educate the employees. And for me, when I spoke to Patrick, when I spoke to Apollo in the course of the month, I was excited to come here to talk to you about this partnership, not just about the employees who are turning 45 or 55, but about that employee who is 22 and has gotten a new job. How do we enable them to start now as opposed to at the age of 45? And I want to conclude by telling a personal story. I'm a few months away from turning 45, but I started my savings and investment journey when I was about 25. I had my firstborn when I was 22 years, right after university. I started early, so I didn't wait for 48. So, and because of that, it put me on quite a lot of pressure to at least have a home for myself. So I want to testify that my first investment in an asset, it was actually a good asset. I bought land. And 5 years later, at the age of 27, I had a house. I was staying in my own house. I'd gotten a mortgage. I remember the amount very well. It was 60 million. But at the age of 27, I was one of the few people in my age that were living in my own house. I invested 60 million. Almost 15 years later, I invested 60. 15 years later, that house is worth almost 300 million. So that was a worthwhile investment. Fast forward, I'm now on my 4th mortgage. So I want to encourage, some people fear mortgages. Some people fear the risk of long-term loans, but I want to encourage people that once you borrow and invest wisely, borrowing is not bad. But borrowing for consumption is completely a bad borrowing. Or investing in an asset, for instance, a vehicle at the age of 22, when you don't have a tangible asset to generate for you more wealth, is probably a bad asset. And those are some of the tips that would like to come to workplaces to be able to demystify and train your staff. Thank you very much. I'd like to close here.
Thank you so much. Another round of applause. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the other things this catalog does is to help us get back to you. So there is another, something like this. So if you feel you need to understand more about NSSF products, there are 3 things you can do with this card. 1, if you are not sure of which phone number we have and we need to update that, you can fill out the card. If you also have your names with ID, national ID, you can fill out this so that we can cross-check and update. If we need to call you in, we'll call you in and then update your KYC. It's important that we update that KYC. 2, if you want us to engage you more on the voluntary product at NSSF, please tick. We have another one that needs exceptional approval, and the MD is in the room. He's the one who approves them, so I can say this with full confidence. There are people who don't want all their money. I was talking to Paul here at the beginning, and he was saying, my auntie only needed 30 million of her 500. But all you could give us was the entire 500. No, you can now actually take part of your money with approval. So it's just a simple process. When you come to us, someone will help you, just a letter which will be approved, and then we are able to. However, watch this space. We are coming up with, once the regulations and the minister has done whatever she needs to do, it will be another product you can walk in and pick and go. The systems are ready, everything is ready, but for now, it's still available to you. You just have to request. You have to be intentional about it. If you want any other, you can still tick that box and then leave this with us. Pull it out and then leave it with us. I never end this, I never call in a guest speaker until we have done the anthem. But let's stand up. Let's stand up a little, because sitting, blood clots and all that, I know you are not the age group we are looking for, the 54s, but also when I look, there is a healthy balance. So we need to, let's have our anthem. We have an anthem, and it's a reminder, especially for us who are in employment. When I do this, you say, here. Okay? Just that. Even those online, please say it, and people will think you are running mad, but tell them we are planning for the future. Louder. Louder. And then when I do this, we say, there. Good people. So? Now, the difference between and is just time, isn't it? And we need to remind ourselves that while we are getting paid. We have a salary, isn't it? Florence, feel free not to do this one. While we have medical insurance. Sylvia was being casual about it, but all of us here have medical insurance. We don't know Chirudu Hospital, Nakasero. Because we have titles. You have a designation. You are director. You are manager. Me, I'm manager, financial literacy. First class for me. We are manager. Because we are, the organization dresses you. You wake up, they dress you. Because you are, they will invite you for a training and feed you. I won't say anything. But they will feed you. Because you are. But when we get, I'm talking about retirement. When we get, there won't be a salary. When we get, you will be your own designation. We'll look for, who are you? I am former. No, you are not. Who are you now? Not former. Who are you now? You will be, because you are. When we get, even the banks may not touch us for loans. Take your 3, 5, 6 mortgages while you are still. Because when you get, no one is going to touch you. When you get the medical insurance cards, you have to leave at work. Because you are. So what are you doing while you are still? To prepare for your, using your time. Florence, please come. Allow me to invite Florence. Please give her a hand clap. And allow me to be informed about this. We are coming up with who do we invite for our keynote address. And her name came up. It wasn't my suggestion, but I knew Florence from it. Please give her another hand clap. I first met with Florence. I didn't know the designations behind her, but I met her. Allow me to share this. Sure. I met her when you go down just here, Green Hill. There is a school opposite Green Hill. It's called Silver Spoon. And she invited me to speak to a group of ladies. They're a group of ladies who had come together, and over time, I think it was their 10th year, they had put up an investment, which is called Silver Spoon. A group of ladies. Please clap for her. Then she was still in employment. I didn't know she was head of HR. But they were having discussions about money. It was a Saturday, and they were ladies were together, not gossiping. They were having a conversation around money. Florence is so many things. But from that point, I started looking at myself and I said, this is head of HR. It's a lady, and they are discussing money. My life changed. Today, she has ascended into retirement, but life has just started. Allow me to invite her. She's former HR, so she knows your world. Allow me to invite her to just put this in perspective, why we need to talk about money at the workplace. Welcome, Florence.
Thank you. Maybe I use this. Sit down. Good morning. Good morning. I know it's a cold morning, but it's not worth our energies down. We just energize our own selves. I've crossed the bar. I've transitioned into the other world, the there that you were talking about. And I'm so humbled to be here. When I got the email from Jackie asking me to come and give a keynote address to people like you, I was so excited because this is my passion. He says I'm in HR. Yes, there's the formal life you have to lead. And there's that other life, what we now call the side hustle. But the side hustle is really you. The other one is formal, fulfilling the world's requirements. But then the real you comes in. And the real you is what makes your end. Because I think, I even asked myself, why did I even come? Because these people have already said what I was going to say. But basically, what they've actually said in terms of preparing for retirement is real. And I'm glad you've even partnered with financial institutions. Of course, NSSF is already a financial institution, but partnering with other financial institutions even strengthened the element of preparing for retirement. Because actually, at the end of the day, it's that money. There's a time I met somebody who told me, I'm in my financial freedom. And I said, oh, what is that? Because I think everything, and even where I come from, they say, where money hits, it softens. It makes you do what you would not have even done because of money. So partnering with the bank is very good. And more so partnering with the people that are with the members that are retiring at every stage. My purpose today, and maybe just to share with you, I don't know whether I have any slides, but it's just to talk about being retirement ready and why it is important, and also what are the options. But it's not only for you who are attending, but looking beyond you. I've served as a human resource all my career life. Head of human resource. And in my last, if I may say, 3 or 4 employers, the most recent is Centenary Bank. Very proud of it. I'll share with you why, especially in that space. Prior to Centenary Bank, I was with Unilever Global. I was the HR director, East and Southern Africa. I had an opportunity to look after 8 countries in the Eastern and the Southern African region. And I did what I did. And I understand what it means and the different ways those people live and how they look at saving. For instance, Kenya, it has been in that space for a very long time. And they have a lot to show in terms of managing that area. Prior to that, I was in MTN. So I'll just share a bit of those 3 areas, what I did as the head of HR, as I pursued my career. As I speak today, because of that passion, I was recently appointed as the independent chairperson of the Centenary Group Staff-Defined Contributory Scheme. This is one of the biggest schemes in the country. It's sitting with over 160 billion asset base. It is an employee scheme. It's not a government scheme. It's for employees contributing as well as the employers. Then I won't go into other titles because I only picked that title as the relevant title and why I'm passionate about this. I'm going to talk about planning for retirement, just briefly, because they've already said most of it. But what are the things that I think stand out for me? And what are the investment options? And health management. Health management, we keep on touching about it, but it's very, very important if you are going to be retirement ready. When we are at work, we think we are going to work forever. Somebody said it's not a permanent place. But when we think about retirement, we think that when retirement comes, we stop working. That's not the case. Working still continues. Right now, I'm not working as such, 5 to 8, but there are moments I work. But it keeps you healthy. But then, what type of work would you like to prepare for when you transition? We are calling it transition. You know, the word retirement has a negative connotation, especially in people who are not even ready. So now they are calling it transition, whatever name you call it. It is moving from active work to working, but in a different way, informal, at your own pace. But of course, it has to bring in money. One of the key questions, are you ready? Are you ready for that? But that is the question that I'm giving you as employers to give to your employees. Are they ready? I know we've talked about the 44 because of the new benefits that are mid-term benefit and so on, access to benefits, but somebody said it should start as early as 22. But to me, it should start as early as when you can understand. Because retirement is like death. It's part and parcel of us. We have to put it in our DNA that retirement is going to happen. So what are we saying when we say retirement ready? We are talking about accessing financial literacy, financial planning. You remember I talked about money. At the end of the day, how do we ensure that we have enough financial resources to take us through? I think all the conversations that have been given, at the end of the day, it's that financial resource that is critical to us to make sure we chart out our future. We need to talk about healthcare. When we're talking about financial planning, we need to know about How do we budget? How do we grow that wealth? How do we create that wealth? But then I said, you need to talk about health care. Health care is so critical. When we are working, we are so energetic. We are so young. Everything happens, and you think it will happen like that every day. Except for some few unfortunate ones. Sometimes they live their life ill. Maybe they had diabetes type 1 from childhood. That's a very small percentage. But I'm talking about a normal situation where we go into work, normal, work through, and we are not even falling sick at work. In fact, some of the challenges I faced when I was HR is where the young people would ask me, but why are you wasting money and paying for us premium? Give us that money. For us, we enjoy it while we are still healthy. And then I ask them, then when you are not healthy, what happens? We'll sort that when we cross over. But health care should not even be thought about when we are sick. It should be preventive, not so? So, preventive, of course, we have insurance. And of course, there are so many ways that we can manage that. But the importance of health to retirement, I'm just trying to link the two, is that, let me tell you, however healthy you are, the day you stop going to work, normal work, into your own work life of retirement, is when those organs, all those many, many things start failing you. Out of the blue. I have a very interesting case, very personal case that I'm dealing with. This individual was so young, so energetic. When we talked about insurance, he thought we just have so much money to waste. He worked for an organization which gave insurance. This organization, when you retire, you can actually continue with your insurance, but you pay for yourself. They gave this individual an option to take the insurance. This individual said, no, I'm not interested. And what happens? He retires. Their retirement age was 55. At 55, he retires. So I asked this individual, when you retire, what is your plan? He says, I have a plan. You know, for us, we are old. I'm older than this individual. He says, I have a plan. I said, but which plan? Maybe you can share. He said, I have a plan. But when we retired, first and foremost, this individual did not even was still paying rent. Secondly, this individual did not take on the medical insurance because he never used to fall sick. However, this individual's lifestyle was an investment of retirement. What can I call it? Maybe a doomed retirement. This individual used to drink, because every evening out with the boys and whatever, and this individual used to smoke. And those are two ingredients for what kind of diseases? Who can guess? Diabetes? Yeah? Kidney? Blood pressure? And spot on. This person, as I speak, is into 1.5 years of his retirement, but is on dialysis. I'm just summarizing. No insurance can take him on. The terminal benefits are gone. He cannot afford rent. This is a young person, not yet 60. Yeah? And this individual has nothing to show for the NSSF, he got his package, for the gratuity that was given, but this individual becomes, who does he burden? The relative, that kind of situation. Of course, we have Social Security when we talk about being retirement ready. Those are the savings that you have at the, of course in Uganda at NSSF, but in other organizations they even have other savings that they put aside for employees besides NSSF. Then there's estate planning. Estate planning, I just wanted to quote a bit so that, because there are some languages or words that put us off. When you say a will, everybody thinks about what? Death. He demystified it, but I want to even make it more comfortable. We call it estate planning. Engage your employees on estate what? Planning. That is meaning, how are your estates going to be managed? Even beyond you. So as HR people, that is also an area to make people retirement ready, to spell out how their estate is going to be managed. And one of the things that I've done in areas where I've been employed, is to cater for that. Share with you shortly. Then there are lifestyle changes. I know that Geoffrey talked about us dreaming to have that big house, but you know, we always hope to do it at a certain time. And we always hope to get that big money and do it. But sometimes we have to change what we plan for based on the trends. I think Geoffrey gave a very good example. I won't go into that detail because I'm very mindful of the time. Then there's the social capital index. Who knows what that is? You know, we are using new jargons, but just managing it. It's the level of demand that you get from society, right from family, relatives, community, etc. We've named it when we were preparing for our retirement. Those are some of the words we used to use. That you have the social capital index. Have you prepared for that? Because the demands are enormous. Of course, under planning for retirement, there's the new element that we talk about, longevity. We are living longer than we planned. Most of the time, when people retired, I think by that time, if I remember growing up, there was a time when life expectancy was, I think, 54. Then it moved to 64. I don't know where we are now. It's 64. Yes, we are now at 64. You imagine 64. I have some few years to go to get to that level. But you can imagine. Today, it is different. We are getting it. We are living longer. So if you retire at 55 or at 60, you stand a chance of living longer. And if you plan for it, even the quality of life will be better and you'll be living longer. So it is important that we factor in some of these elements. I know I've touched on what role should the employer do in this journey. we have people coming as soon as the employees join you, because that is the lifespan you have. The time they join to the time they leave. As soon as they join, at orientation, take them through financial management, financial literacy. Because some of them are earning for the first time, and they don't even know what to do with the money. And they start, of course, one of the dream things we have as soon as you leave campus, what do you want to spend on? What is the biggest item? Car. That is what our dream world is. Of course, we know we'll rent a house, whatever, but we want to drive our own car. It's not bad, it's not wrong, it's okay. But take them through financial management so that they understand what to do. Then during the stay is when you partner with the likes of NSSF to provide continuous financial literacy at every stage. Unfortunately, I have a life journey, but I could not be able to project it. It talks about, I will share it with Apollo, and you can share with the people. It's in the presentation, but it failed to open. It talks about our life from the time you are 0 age, it's just one slide, to the time it's assumed that if you plan very well, you'll live until 90. But at 0 age, of course, you go through until teens. At the age of 20, between 20 and 30, you now start your life, kind of independent from your parents and so on. And that is a critical life. Then from there, in between 30s and 40s, you are bringing up a family. But at that time, while you are bringing up a family, you should be thinking about having your home. Somebody talked about a home. She was 27 and she put up a home. That was great. But how many of us even think about homes? Then between 40 and 50, the children are growing and almost leaving your home. At 50, they are in their university. You are again beginning to be the two of you. At that time, actually 50, retirement is what? Is kicking in. But look at the things they are talking about. You are playing golf, going for travel, going to see colleagues, doing your hobbies, the things that you wanted to do when you couldn't during the family life. That goes on up to about 70. Between 70 and 80, you are beginning to grow old. And that is when, of course, health is at its worst, but at the same time, you are beginning to get the third what? The third leg. Between 80 and 90, you are actually now old, and now the only thing you think about is maybe traveling, a small traveling, and so on. But God is now the prime person in your life. You are looking towards going to heaven, preparing for heaven. It's a very interesting cycle. But it gives you an indication of what are the things you should have been doing at certain stages of your life. And those are the things that you are supposed to be thinking of and trying to create an environment for your employees to be able to prepare for the next. Somebody was talking about when you are 20, you should be planning for the things you are going to be you require in the 30s. When you are 30, into the 30s and 40s and so on. So don't wait until the last minute. But I want to be different. Even when you are 55 or 50, and you are expecting some finances, you can still make a turn around. You can still I can still do the right things. I think Godfrey is the one who shared with us an example of the person who had the 2 billion, was it 2 billion, who wanted to build that big house. But what did he do? He picked the right option, investment option. And now he's still earning, but his money is still there, and he's still living a good life. So those are things that you can expose your employees to. The retirement products. I think Stanbic has mentioned the number of products that they have that can be considered. Taking appropriate investments. At this point in time, I think a lot has been said. All I can do is share my own personal experience. As an HR professional, one of the first things that I do in an organization, the moment I join that organization, is to see what is the plan for employees. What is the exit plan? Because for me, that is critical. The moment I enter, I'm already resigning, meaning I'm already exiting in terms of what is it that I get out of this organization to the next level. So retirement should be at entry, not at exit. The moment you enter, you're planning for your exit. It could be retirement, it could be just an exit to another building block. I'll give you an example. In MTN, I was one of the pioneers of MTN. We started MTN. I was the HR for MTN. I recruited all the people in MTN. I did all the culture in MTN. But one of the things that disturbed me was that we were we were the highest paying in the market in terms of salaries, benefits, and even a working environment, but most importantly, the compensation. But one of my sleepless nights was when staff were up in arms that they were not getting enough, they need more salary. Every time we were meeting them, they wanted more salary. And I said, why, for heaven's sake? I did all the salary surveys. We were still top. We wanted to be in the 75th percentile, but we were actually in the 100th percentile in pay. And I said, no, I'm not adding more money. But I did not stop at saying no. As an HR, I sat down to understand what was happening. These were very young people that we were recruiting. Most of them had been abroad that we were employing. And many of them, it was their first job. So I realized they were living beyond their spend. So I decided to actually invite none other than, with all due respect, Pique, who is now the chairperson of NSSF board, to come and talk about roasting the check. We used to pay by check by that time. Roasting the check was his theme, but telling people on how you can translate that check into something bigger than what you think. How to divide that check, that monthly check, into investments and all sorts of things. Of course, they were young, they didn't even understand those long-term things and so on, but they picked a leaf. The short story of that, even my expatriate employees, these were employees that we thought knew everything about, they said, wait a minute, come. We would like you to give that talk to our wives. Most of them were men because it was engineering, technical. Why did they want to give that talk to the wives? They used to earn, and the women were spending, because they were really housewives. They were not working. They were wives of expatriates. So they were busy spending, and I think these people were like, but when they got that talk, some of the women, the wives of those expatriates, told me, you know what, we want a private talk with our families. If you understand the logic, it's not only employees, it's actually even now families. It's not only your employee, it is the spouse, it is the family. The family, for them to understand how to manage finances. So that program became a permanent program. We developed policies around it, and we instituted it. I was a mere HR, but that's what you can do and add value to your organization. The other one was to set up a savings scheme. I think you all have those savings schemes. At one point in time, they said, for us, give us our money. They were only contributing, I don't even now remember the percentages, but let's say they were contributing 3% and the company is contributing 5% or whatever it is. But remember, that is just a small percentage of the entire amount. But you cannot manage the full amount, but you are asking for that small saving. So what I did was at their AGM, the AGM of the Provident Fund, I would bring in people, experts, to talk to them about financial management. And they fully understood. And the investors, those guys who do investment, they have some charts that they show them. If you want to earn $2,000 in your 50s, $2,000, this is what you need to save. So people got the perspective of what is it, like the way he has been sharing. What is it that I need to do to be able to live that life? And I believe a number of staff from MTN, at least for my time, have left in a good place. They are still young. They haven't yet retired because they were very young. But I believe most of them have been able to prepare for retirement. Of course, like they said, the numbers never go 100%. It may be 20% or whatever. At Unilever, they had everything because it is in Kenya. Kenya has a very good culture of saving. I think because of their formal sector is bigger than, they have a very big formal sector, and most of them don't have side hustles. So what I did, I realized that most of them live in rented houses. And yet renting as an expenditure in retirement is critical. So what I did was to do a housing scheme, where again we partnered with financial institutions, and they were able to start owning houses. The good thing that in Kenya they had the condominium law, they had all those laws that we are now putting in place in Uganda. They had them, and it was very easy. They just needed to own a condo. And you talked about people living in the village or having grown in the village. When kids have grown up in the urban, it's very difficult to start telling them about going back to the village. So they also thought that they were supposed to put up a house in the village. But when they realized that actually when you buy this condominium, this condo, you'll be able to stay in town, and when your time is to go back in the village, or if you, whatever happens, that condominium still remains yours, and still your children will still use it and still live in the city. So that one was also a scheme that we were able to chat out of the many things they had. So you need to look at what is it that they need in retirement that needs to be catered for right now. At Centenary, we have a big provident fund, and that fund, of course, the employer contributes a percentage, and employer also contributes. But at one point in time, the time I joined the organization, they wanted the fund scrapped because they said it doesn't benefit them. They were young. Of course, I fought tooth and nail. We were able to retain the fund. But what we did was, again, we introduced a voluntary scheme, like the way NSSF did, but we did that before NSSF. But of course, it was not forthcoming. There were those who wanted to save more and those who didn't want. So we made it voluntary. But as I go back in my new capacity, I realized that those who are saving voluntary, the numbers have actually gone up, because they are getting a very good return, and they are realizing it's the only saving second to NSSF that they have. So again, on that scheme, every AGM, I know Jeffrey was reminding me, he actually came at one of them to come and give them financial literacy, to give them more details about how to, what the investments that we are putting in. Because they are bankers, they used to tell us, why are you putting in our money in the equity? Equity is losing money, and yet we could actually invest that money. Of course, when you are in such a fund, it's long-term investment that you will be considering. So we gave them talks. They were able to understand, but at the same time to also educate them that, because some of them started exiting in order to access that money, but within less than 2 years, they would have lost their money. So they come back again asking for employment. Okay, I'm about. Then another thing that we did introduce recently is midterm access. So those are also opportunities that you can also give that. But we do that in conjunction with UBRA and also with NSSF, because we learn from each other. We also have a medical scheme, which we have made sure that it is carried forward into the retirement. I know, of course, I was chatting with the MD that has the bill allowed us to do certain products, because there are some products that the fund was talking about that they would like to go into. And therefore, that we should look out for those products. because medical is very critical. Insurance is so critical, especially, and if you want to prepare for the retirement, make sure that you start getting used to managing the premium and so on, because it's very, very important. My own journey, I think Apollo talked about, I teamed up with ladies, fellow ladies of like minds. We were young, we had little kids, and we decided to put up a school. But that time it was not a school, it was a daycare to look after, because we felt we had a problem. So we asked them to look after that, to look after kids and so on. But the gist of this is that that investment, you could not do it individually. So we partnered together, we pulled money together, we put up a school. Eventually it turned into a school because of the pressure of the parents. It was a daycare, moved to nursery, from nursery. Every time the parents were like, we are not taking our kids anywhere. Now it's up to P7. So, but what is the beauty about it? The beauty about it is that we put in structures that are giving us dividends. So dividends, putting in equity, or we bought shares and so on. So that one has been also one of the things that I see, that we can also educate staff to come together and, with their colleagues, but do it, but put in systems that will help you. To this date, we collect our dividends. The other thing that I wanted to share is that already they've talked about land and so on. But what I realized is that there is what we call passive and active investment. When you are working and hustling, passive investment is the best, because in many cases we do the wrong investment with some people. But active investment is good when you can be able to give it the time and manage. Debt management. Debt management is one of those things that one needs to manage before they exit. You need to pay off all your loans, if possible, before retirement, because in retirement, it's very challenging. What are the opportunities and options? I think I've just mentioned some of them, but one of the things is to diversify and make sure that you put your investments. I invested in land. I will share one example of property. After my savings, when I was leaving for that expatriate job in Unilever, I was asked to take my money. I opted not to. It was very attractive, but I said, no, let me leave it to collect whatever small interest it collects in NSSF. When I came back, I worked, and when I realized I have like 5 years or so ahead of me to retire, I decided to pick the money. But what did I do? I decided not to build physically, because building can be very straining, can be very cumbersome, and especially if you are working. What I did was to look for property that I suspected, or that I realized had been put up in a good way. And therefore, I opted to buy, because I had the option to build. But building, I had gone through it, through other things, but I decided. So instead of NSSF giving me interest, I said, you know what? After NSSF, I might not be able to continue. So I bought apartments which were able to give me a return. So that's how, again, you can change the way you invest. The other one is in stocks. I've been investing in stocks. That's passive income, equities. But there were some opportunities that presented themselves in the market, and I was able to invest offshore. And of course, local as well. But then our stock, of course, locally has not been very encouraging. But I was on the Nairobi Stock Exchange, Johannesburg, and other stocks. But because of my investment, financial advisors were interested in my investment that I had been doing, the savings. So they actually took me up. I'm now in the Amazon, in the Microsoft, and so on. While there was COVID, I was making money. So now, as I progress towards my retirement, I realized liquidity is very important, cash flow. So I started moving my monies, some of the assets I thought were going to be a liability, like the way he mentioned. I decided this asset should be liquidated. I put it into the money market to pay me a regular income. And of course, there are options, there are investment options around, like unit trusts, treasury bonds, and so on. And you structure them in such a way that they continue giving you income. Then networking, very, very important. So those are some of the things that you can share with your employees and be able to at least make sure that it also helps retention, but at the same time, it also helps you to have a good alumni. And some of the other things that are available, which I hope NSSF can be able to develop, given the new bill, are things like annuities, because that is very important, regular flow of income. And then, of course, there's what they call the REITs, real estate investment trusts. If we can get those kind of things, that would be. The one thing that I would like to highlight is the need to enlist the costs, the common costs that you undertake under retirement. There are so many, and those will determine the kind of cash flow that you require and how to plan for it. These include housing, healthcare, extended family emergency costs, food, energy, transportation, taxes, house help or gardener, data, because that's airtime costs, internet, travel, entertainment, all these costs. You can decide which life you want to live. And you say, this is what I want to spend on that. And then you know what kind of inflows or what kind of money that you need to live a better life. Last is the time. You know, the biggest thing you have when you retire is time. But the worst management of time happens in retirement. So it is important to mentally prepare the employees for how to manage their time. Right when they are still at work, but as they progress towards what? Their exit. Because it's very, very unfortunate. Do you know that you can actually sleep and sleep and sleep because you have nobody telling you to go to somewhere? But you are actually slipping into depression. Those are some of the things that are likely to happen. Highlights of pitfalls, things that are likely to challenge you, is when you don't have a clear plan, especially when you start late in the retirement. Overspending. When you get that benefit, you think it is it's money from heaven, it's your sweat. So there's a tendency to overspend. And we also have some people who are in this market who know that people have retired, and they bring them sham businesses. Especially if you see young people moving with old men, but they are doing deals, those are just fraudsters eating away their retirement. So those are the things you need to warn staff about. Underestimating the health costs. Thinking that when I was at work, they were looking after me, like he said, they dress me up, they do everything, I'm healthy, so what would make me sick? Certainly, retirement, there's a lot of things that bring that. Failing to plan for taxes. I talked about apartments. The biggest target for the taxpayer is now what? Rentals. Did I even know? But the good thing, I had some other rentals before, I was paying taxes, so it wasn't a big surprise. So they need to get into that culture. Do it right. Then taking too much debt, there's a lot of money, but it does not belong to you. And of course, debt brings depression. Failing to diversify investments, you need to diversify. Because when we invested in the school, little did we know that COVID would come. We closed the school for 2 years. No income. But of course, there were other things. Investing in the wrong portfolios, those businesses, new ventures, buildings, a car. When you are retiring, you want to buy a certain car because you had always wanted to buy it and you don't know the maintenance costs. Fixed interest instruments. These ones we put in money, but they only give you returns periodically. You don't get regular cash. Not very easy to get liquid. Ignoring inflation. Oh, that one. It erodes your money. Not seeking professional advice. Please look at what the guy who interacted with Geoffrey had. Had he followed his own mind, he would be gone. But because he had somebody experienced, he was able to get right advice. And then starting a business with no experience. Are you ready yourself? Can you make the others ready? That's the only way we can improve. If you are not ready, NSSF is available. That's why it's here. It has all the expertise. I've not been paid. I was, by the way, a member of the board, so I have my fiduciary responsibilities but are you ready? So please go back, look at your people, engage your people. Do you engage your people one-on-one to see what exactly they may be, what are the requirements? That is very helpful. But what I like is NSSF is ready to partner with you, to engage the people one-on-one and prepare them for retirement. A person who is ready and prepared will be very productive at work. I left employment and everybody was like, how can you? Yeah, I said, you know what? There's a time for everything. This is the time to exit. If I wait until they push me out, I will go mentally sick. Do you know that? When you leave, when you are not ready to leave, that you actually walk into depression. So make them ready, make them feel that retirement is here to stay. It happens, we actually grow, but you can actually enjoy life after that. Those who saw me before like my friend there, Miriam. I think I'm not looking very bad. I'm not looking so sickly, and I'm enjoying my retirement. But because I planned and I listened. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Give another round of applause. And yes, please. Thank you so much. You can take your leave. Please give another round of applause. In God we believe, we trust. Everyone else must bring data. That's data that retirement is good. That is the evidence. You've seen the evidence. Please give another round of applause. Allow me to invite Aisha as we wind up this for any questions and answers. Let's go through the questions and answer session. But first, I will start with mine and I will take the microphone to Patrick. Florence raised some questions. What does the product space look like? Annuities. She spoke of that. Maybe you could give some light in that space as the others get into the questions.
Actually, annuities are part of the plan. When the law was amended, allows you or the fund to get into an arrangement with a member on programmed withdrawals. You may even say what you do, just give me my interest once a year, keep the principal there until it earns more. So that's going to be very flexible for members. Once we're actually done with the trust laws, when you hit the age of 55, 60, many times you are done with the education of your kids, you have a house. So they want you to begin to think about legacy. So the other assets you may have that are outside NSSF. Can we work together? You bring those back into NSSF, because then you know that the safekeeping, the investment of that is going to be safe, helping you go through the rest of your life and the next generation. So that's flexible.
Thank you very much, Patrick, for that clarification. Good morning, members. I'll be taking on the Q&A session, which we are going to do for the next 25 minutes. Okay, so while we are here, we also had our colleagues and members who are there online, and I managed to pick up a few comments from YouTube, Twitter, and the online platform we had. There's someone called Richard who's saying, thank you so much, Mr. MD, for enlightening us. I think at the time you gave a presentation. We also had Kusima saying, retiring when kids are starting school and changing diapers, Lord help us. Geoffrey, that was from your presentation. The audience is very excited about the initiative and the program. And someone from Bulambuli called Richard Reeves is saying, I'm clapping all the way here from Bulambuli. And it's a great initiative. It's been long overdue. Kudos, NSSF. So other questions here we have, this is going to go to Mr. Headmaster, sir. For the YoBenefits program, what are the expectations from the employer? That's number one. Then this is to Geoffrey. Data statistics are important information in analyzing quality of life. On the basis of NSSF statistics, what would the minimum acceptable wage to maintain a decent life at retirement look like? Those are the questions from online. Also, there were inquiries about the catalog and the manual that was given in here. The online colleagues wanted us to share it with them. It will be uploaded on our NSSF website once it's ready. If you have any questions in the room, feel free to raise your hand. Bring the microphone to you. Or you can write them down. My colleagues will be able to select and answer.
Thank you, Aisha. A very good morning to you all. Uchanda Jimmy from EcoBank. Thank you, Patrick, Florence, and Godfrey. Very insightful sites that we've picked up here. What I liked was when you took us through the projection of the voluntary collections and what it meant. I also noticed that that is available within the NSSF Go app. It's a very powerful tool. I'd encourage those that haven't downloaded it, please download it. The question I have is something I picked from Florence. She talked about real estate investment trust. That is something I'd very much like to learn. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Dr. Dithan Chiraga. I had a question. For some of us who are nearing that age cutoff when we can access our resources, kind of a mixed feeling. On one hand, you want to retain the relationship with NSSF, but also you worry about the potential changing legal environment. I mean, what guarantee do you have? Because even for the last debate, there was an issue around the taxation of benefits. So you wonder what will happen then a couple of years from now, where you thought maybe you were guaranteed a certain amount of saving, and then who knows what will happen then, where someone legislates and maybe the country is struggling financially and the taxation is actually increased. But also Patrick touched on the issue of making sure we align our wills with what we indicate when we are registering for NSSF. And I quickly tried to log on. I realized that my dependents actually had changed since then. The system doesn't enable us to change. I remember I tried that a couple of years back. Can we be allowed to make that edit? Thank you. It's available, but when you try to change, it doesn't work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Paul Romanda, and I wanted to, we've seen so much from the YoBenefits and what NSSF is doing. But what didn't come out clear for us, I'm representing employees as well as myself, is the interest regime per se. Whereas we want to grow voluntary contributions, we're also aware that our money only earns interest as a balance of 30th June every year. So what happens to those monthly collections? I know there is an amendment, but how fast can that be fast-tracked for us to be confident and for us to, for you to position NSSF better than the other players in the market? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll take one last round of questions for.
Thank you very much. Code Elijah. These sessions are very interesting, very helpful. Let me use 1 minute. I've benefited from the support NSSF has been giving to us as employers. Thank you very much. Through Jacqueline, Apollo, Patricia. I've also benefited, luckily, from Stanbic Bank. So I'm happy about the partnership. The products are really good. So I think we are headed for better things with the partnership. With Stanbic Bank, I've seen James and the team, they've done great work for us. I work with Mercy Corps. I want to talk about 2 things. And I'm going to use statistics that are not substantiated. He said it takes around 5 years for somebody to become a subject matter expert in things. So in the context of the support that we get in terms of becoming financially literate as employees, as employers supporting our employees, I've been trying to reflect on the level of effort and intervention given from NSSF. It's great investment so far being done. I'm not complaining. But I think maybe we might need more to support the teams that support employees and employers. Even in terms of the competencies, that whole journey of becoming financially literate as an employee, as a Ugandan, because I'm also looking, the MD has been talking about the national perspective, policy perspectives. In my mind, what's going on, what more can be done to transform? I know April's reading the vision of a person that NSF is supporting, independent, able to make decisions. It's a good vision, but how do we reach there? It's a strategic question that I think we need to think about in terms of more transformative interventions and maybe scaling up. As I said, I'm not complaining, but for me that's a question that I'm thinking about. What else can we do to change the tides? Okay, is from the statistics we have been getting 85% or 60, 80 of people that get problems after 2 years after saving, after receiving their money. when I look at those statistics that we are talking about, discussing, my question, I'm saying, yes, we have done what's maybe that's good, but maybe it might be not be good enough. So at a strategic level, even as we do all the sessions, we do different things, the workshops, the mentorship programs, at the back of my mind, I'm asking NSSF and maybe Stand Big Back teams, what else can we do? It's a question I cannot answer, but maybe it's a collective question that all of us need to think about. Coming from the learning perspectives, takes around 5 years for somebody to become an expert at what they're doing. So if we have these bits of sessions, yes, they will help us to reach somewhere, but maybe they may not, we might not achieve the vision that we want to achieve. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Geoffrey, I'll invite you to the platform to answer the first set of questions for the sake of the online audience. Kindly.
Okay, thank you. So there was a question about stats. What would the minimum wage look like? I don't think we've run numbers to determine what you can call the acceptable minimum wage for someone to live a reasonable life. I would be lying if I told you that those numbers were there. But because we're a scheme that covers every Ugandan, regardless of how much you earn, we try to model solutions that should be able to work for every person. Okay, so don't look at it in terms of I need to be earning this much to be able to make it. Even in terms of what is reasonable, it is relative. I keep telling people that there is a story of a sugarcane cutter who was saving with a fund. He was working at Kakira. And on average, I think they were earning less than 200,000 shillings per month. And that's a typical member of NSSF. Now, this person cut cane for about 30 years. One day they qualified to pick their money, and we paid them slightly less than 30 million shillings. But because they were earning less than 200K, for them, they almost ran mad. Because 30 million shillings was a lot of money. This gentleman had his own land in Arua. He baked bricks. He built a nice house, bought iron sheets, and roofed his, I think it was like a 2-bedroom house, and he said he spent less than 5 million shillings on his house because the bricks were his. He was building on his land. And he said he named his house NSSF. And he said without having saved with NSSF, he would never have a decent shelter. Now, to a person in this room who is earning 10 million, 20 million, 30 million, they'll look at 30 million and say, what can you possibly do with 30 million? But you should also understand it in context. If I was earning 200,000 and you give me 30 million, probably it can be the amount that will transform my life. So this gentleman goes back to Arua, builds a house at less than 5 million shillings, and is not looking at your type of house. And for him, he's happy. Whether there is no plaster, he's saying, I have a roof. The rest of the money, he starts a business, opens a shop, and says, I have the biggest shop in my trading center. So as the rest of the retired people are sleeping, and you are sleeping away because it compromises your health, at least he can walk to his shop every day, and he's got a new address. So this question is really not about how much would be reasonable, how much would be sufficient, but it is a fact of how much you are earning when you're working. It's also a fact of the kind of life that you choose to live when you retire. You make decisions, and they must be guided by how much you can afford. So there is no specific kind of reasonable amount that I can talk to. The other that I want to talk to is on the e-platforms. Our e-platforms have been designed to enable you to do a number of things. Specifically, the issue of being able to update your details, we might need to come to you physically and help, because it's possible for you to update certain details electronically. But we've also made it impossible for you to make certain amendments. So whereas for things like phone number, email, you can be at liberty to change electronically. You can even add children. You can even add a spouse, but we've not made it possible for you to remove a spouse. Okay? Because you don't do that casually. Okay? We don't want you to have a quarrel in the night and in the morning you say, I have removed you. Then after a week you reconcile and say, okay, sweetheart, now you are. Now for things like removing, you can't remove a spouse except if you come to us physically and say, we went through a process, this person is no longer my spouse, then we can remove. Children, we don't expect that you'll come and remove your children. Again, that's why we don't make it possible for you to remove. That might call for some sort of physical interaction with the fund, and you give us, valid reasons as to why you'd want to remove someone that you call your child. But for the simple updates, you can make them online. But the reason why we don't want to make it so convenient is that some of these facts are extremely critical because we're talking about money that you've saved long term. So we don't want to make it so casual for you to just make any, change. I felt those were the ones that I needed to respond to, right? Patrick, I think had, quite a number that he should answer.
Question came from, I believe, Dr. Kiriaga regarding a change in legal regimes, and you gave an example of taxation of benefits. Actually, I was involved in that. The typical pension fund in most developed countries, they use the tax code to encourage savings. And there are basically three types of tax regimes that govern pensions. One is they tax you before you put your money in NSSF. Then when NSSF earns money, that income is taxed. And then the benefit is taxed. So you've got 3 points at which you can impose a tax. You can impose a tax at contribution. You can impose a tax at income level, the scheme income or corporate income, and then you can impose a tax at benefit payment. In Uganda, the current tax regime are two. Before you contribute to NSSF, your money is subject to tax. In other words, we do not deduct your contributions before URA taxes you. They tax the contribution that they do. So that's a tax at contribution. NSSF itself as a corporation pays tax. The benefits at the end are not taxed. So we have what's called the TTE in terms of where the tax is imposed. What we had proposed before, and I use we, is to follow what most companies do, and that is do not tax the contribution, do not tax the scheme income, but when the benefits come out, now you can tax. When you run the numbers, a member ends up with more money under that scheme because of the compound magic of money than if you would go tax at the front. So the regime was going to be more beneficial for a tax member. And what it does is then people begin to actually shield more of their money. So for example, if you earn $1 million shillings, here will say we'll tax you 30%. Basically, you're keeping $1 million shillings, they tax 30%, that means you paid 300 shillings in taxes. You netted 700. And out of the 700, you still pay the 5%, which is 50. So you have 650,000 shillings. Under a regime where that taxation doesn't occur, you have $1 million shillings, you say I'll pay 5%, so you pay 50,000 shillings. Now you can let tax you at the 950. Eventually, when you work it out, it works so much better. It is very, very difficult. I can tell you, pensions are one of those things that most regimes will not. However hard strong they are, they will not touch because you'll create a riot in the streets. NSF today is one of the most interesting companies, and what we call a public interest company. Even the people who don't save with NSSF think they own NSSF. One time they were interviewing about a guy, and I said, because and this guy doesn't save with the fund, but they are passionate about it. So it's one of those things that actually people's interest safeguard it. Rarely do regimes ever touch that. It's just the safest place you can put, and you know that the regime will not do anything that's adverse to this interest. So I would say that shouldn't be worried about. Interest regime on voluntary. The mandatory interest regime is going to be very different from the voluntary regime is very different from mandatory. And for the simple reason, think of this. In a mandatory, even if NSF gave you 0 interest, the government took care of it by giving you double what you put in. In fact, when you look at all the schemes from, say, Singapore, Malaysia, all the Commonwealth countries, when pensions were set up at that time, the reason why they gave a guarantee and forced the employer to double it is because they wanted to take return out of that equation. I've said 5,000 shillings. Guess what? The employer has been forced to put 10,000 shillings. So NSF, don't be risky going looking for returns, because then you expose that entire asset to riskiness. Voluntary, on the other hand, you don't have that. If you put 5,000, it's 5,000 you have. So the interest regime under that is going to be very different from the mandatory scheme. So it will be as competitive as if you walk to UAP or whatever it is, or a bank. Interest could be computed daily, weekly, monthly, so that has actually been taken care of in that area. Rates, the REITs are real estate investment trusts. The way REITs work typically is this. Instead of you going to buy a property, what you do is you go and find an investor who has bought properties. So they're holding properties, not a property, and you buy into that company. So now that's a REIT. The underlying income are rentals that are coming from that property or sales, but you don't own a single, and it's almost like stock, but the assets are real estate. In Uganda, the laws haven't yet caught up to that yet. It's a problem. Kenya tried, hasn't really taken it off. It will take a while before we actually see that happening within the country. And finally, on the support to experts become more important, you're right. Personal financial is very customized. Your circumstances are going to be very different from somebody else's circumstances. There is no a one size fit all. What we are sharing with you are concepts and principles. Once you get those concepts and principles, that's why we always say look for a financial advisor. Why? Because your circumstances may require a different kind of arrangement for you. As long as you understand the concept and the principle, now you have the freedom to go look for a financial advisor who can customize your planning based on your life, based on your needs, based on everything. If many of you go to church, I'm going to tell you something that I find out human beings who are very, very guilty of this. So you go to church and say, God, please show me that man I want to marry. God, please show me that man who should marry me. And you're praying, you're hoping that God says, okay, marry Tom. If you're a lady, you're there, go, please, God, show me. Say, you hope you pray for Jane. And what we're looking for are prescriptive answers as when we go to church. And yet what the Bible has given us are concepts and principles, which if you apply, you most likely will make the right choice. I'll give an example. I like this one. Think about this. I want to marry, so should I marry? The Bible has been said who you can't marry. It says, okay, there are people you don't touch. Your mother's sister, whatever. It has actually listed, there's a list of people that don't even think of it. So you know those are off the list. Then it said if somebody else is married, that's not off the list too. Don't touch that one. There's a debate whether somebody's a believer or not. Maybe you put that on the list. So suddenly, you've got this list of, then you've got a whole pool of potential candidates. And that's why he says that everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial or good. Yes, so Patrick, here you are 60 years old, you went and saw a Chinese woman who is 100. She's not your relative. She's not married. By the way, so she's a candidate. I could actually marry her. But is she good for me? So that's where, so we use that principle. You can actually make a lot of choices. And the reason why you make that choice is because you either get a reward or a consequence for making that choice, and it's okay. So the point of it is, a lot of the things are principles and concepts, not necessarily prescription in terms of what you're looking for. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patrick. I take the podium to call upon any other questions as we close. And I would also like to introduce myself. My name is Aisha Nakanwaji. Together with myself, I have a team. We are a team of staff from NSSF here with me. I request them to stand up for a round of introduction or come to the front. I believe there are other questions that might be in the room. We shall be stationed at that table and the tables outside to answer any other questions that might arise. For the sake of time and also for the sake of other agendas that you might have to carry on after here, I request that if you have any other questions, you approach any of my team members. Kindly stand up if you're from NSSF. If you are here right now, there's that table. We have relationship managers in the house: Olivia, Anna, Mercy, Francis, Hilda. We shall be here to take any other questions. We shall still be here. I would like to close by letting you know about an initiative at my workplace. As we are preparing people for retirement, we are privileged at NSSF to have an in-house program for the ladies called the Pathfinder program. We have a book club in there where we are currently reading a book by John C. Maxwell. How many people have heard of John C. Maxwell? Yeah, so the book we are reading is called Talent is Never Enough. So while I was driving here this morning, I was thinking of how he talks about the 13 choices of making someone a talent plus person. You can have talent, you can have skill, but how do you become a talent plus person? So he speaks about the 13 choices, and among the 13 choices he puts emphasis on is preparation. So this initiative, in my head, I really think it's just preparation. We are preparing ourselves and our employees for a better life. So one of the quotes from that book that I picked up was, if you prepare today, chances are you will not be repairing tomorrow. So I end with that, and I invite a headmaster to bring this occasion to an official close. Let's keep in touch.
Thank you, Aisha. Give her a round of applause. And give me a bigger one, because I want to say that she works with me. So some of those good things, please give me a handle. Thank you so much. We want to end at this point, but before we end, let's spell out one thing. And in front of you is a catalog. Every day we wake up, we are making choices on whether to retire in wealth or in poverty. You are preparing to either retire in wealth or retire in repairing your poverty. So the choice in front of you is the voluntary product. Kindly take that choice. If you have taken that choice, please feel free to leave the form just there. Write your name, or you hand it over as you get out. Write your name, just your name and your phone number. Or if you have your NIN number and your NSSF ID, you can also put them there. But all we need is that number and name. The rest will follow up. So as we end, I want you to spell out ACT, the acronym ACT. So all of us in chorus, all of us, and with all our energy, spell it out. The thing is, spell it out, eh? Okay, let's go. Now, louder with energy. I've been told I haven't given you lunch, but we'll skip that, eh? Let's pretend I have, okay? Now slower. Action. Changes. Things. Things only change when you act. The voluntary form is in front of you. Have a great day. Departure at leisure. We can have a photo op, I invite the MD and our keynote speaker, Geoffrey, and everyone else for a photo op. This photo, you just present to the bank, it is as good as security.
Where you have bought land is very yeah, if somebody tells you that where you have bought land is very far, that's one of the greatest lies. Because far has a reference point. Far from where? Because, okay, should people living in Arua live because it is Arua? But that's their land. Wherever you find the land to buy it. It will be okay. I have a daughter of mine who found land in Chiboga. And he asked me whether I can buy it. I said, you buy it. After buying it, the pipeline, the oil pipeline to Tanzania is passing her land. And the rest is history. So buying land, wherever I find it, is very important. Buy it. And the land gets value. When I first bought here, an acre was about 100,000. Now it is 35 million. So buy land and keep it. The other tip I need to give to people.
What is expected of the workplaces?
People, when they see money, they get
We're expecting you to partner with us. Just let us know and we'll come to you.
ATM and even
how do we get this to your workplace? Just contact any of us and we'll get back to you.
There you went with the money. I don't know how. You must get used to money that when it comes, it's like anything else has come. So when they gave me my retirement money, it was like I don't have money. It was in the account for a long time as I was planning, simulating what I would do without withdrawing the money. It was there, seated. And when I was now certain that what I have put on paper is good enough, I started investing little by little so that I don't waste the money. Otherwise, money runs and runs fast. What you worked for in 20 years, you can spend it in a year or even in a few months.
This journey has taught me the most important thing: prioritize how you spend your money. What are your priorities? If you're on consumption, if that's your priority, fine. But if after 20 years you have nothing left, don't complain, because your priority was consumption. If your priority is to keep some money for a rainy day, keep it. If your priority is to take a risk and generate wealth so you can be wealthier than you are now, it's your priority. Just decide. You have to choose one thing over another. In this game of money, you cannot have your cake and eat it at the same time. If you choose consumerism or consumption, that's fine. You will not save. If you choose to save, then you are delaying your gratification now. If you choose to generate income, it is because you have chosen to enjoy it later. The choice is entirely up to you. What we are helping is to make you more enlightened when you are making those choices, to know what your consequences are. That if you buy a car as opposed to building a house, well, the car will lose value 25% as soon as you put on a number plate. The house will still be there. Or to do a business and generate more money so you can buy an even better car. Choice is entirely up to you. What you need to do is seek the knowledge to make an informed choice and judgment. As the night comes after day, the end will come. It will come either in the form of your work ending, or you just die. And you can't leave it to chance to say, I will deal with, people say we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So you kick the can further down the road. No, prepare, know that the end will come. If it's the end of your working life, what do you then do after that? Now you cannot make that decision at the point when it ends. There is a piece of advice I read which was very interesting, is that if there's a way you want to live your life in your 30s, then you start preparing for it in your 20s. What you want to be in your 40s, you start working on it in your 30s. What you want to be in your 50s, you start working on it in your 40s. Right now what I am doing is I am preparing for my 70s. It's going to be a long journey, but I'm starting on it now because I'm very clear about what I want it to look like. So work starts now. Don't think you'll get to 70 and then determine what to be in your 70s. It's too late.
My wealth building formula stands on 3 key pillars. The first one, as a person, you should have at least 6 months of emergency fund that you have. These are things that meet your things that you have not planned for. We typically have budgets which we run, but we never have emergency budgets. What happens when you actually have a person who gets sick? And none of us makes an appointment with sickness, but you must actually treat that sickness. What happens when you lose someone? That's what I call an emergency fund. That's the first thing you should always have. And as a rule of thumb, it should be at least 6 months of your monthly expense that you have. So if you're spending 1 million, you should have an emergency fund of 6 million that you should never touch and only reach, is only and only touched during emergencies. The second one that you should always drive to, whatever money you earn, whatever amount you earn, whatever, please bold that, it is whatever. You should save a minimum of 10%. That is your own payment. You spend money to pay the school fees, you spend money to pay the landlords, you spend money to pay your workers, whatever. Who pays you? The only person who pays you is yourself, and that's the money that you get. Now, that 10% minimum, as a rule of thumb, you can do higher if you can, but at least as a basic minimum, you should be able to save 10%. Then once you do the savings, you have to leverage those savings and use them as an investment vehicle. The money that you can invest, don't get the savings for the savings' sake. Put the savings, and those savings must be invested to generate for you an income, either actively or passively. But whatever it is, that money should be able to work for you. So those are 3 things that I should be able to tell you about. Don't just rely on your job, that this is what I'm doing. If you do your job and you've done savings, those savings should be able to do for you some additional money. And that's how you'll be able to build your wealth.
The one thing that you need to invest in yourself is in your health. It would be very unfortunate for you to have worked for so long, worked so hard, amassed so much wealth in terms of assets, having huge savings with NSSF, and then you just drop dead just like that. And it can happen. It's not the land titles, it's not the buildings, it is not the vehicles, it's not the titles that you have, it is the health that you have. You drive a car and when it has a cling in the engine, you stop and call a mechanic. But actually you wake up in the morning and you have an ache in the back, and then you have a pain in the arm, and then you have a sharp pain in the joint, and you say, oh, I'll be fine. In any case, I have a presentation to make, or by the way, I have this deadline to meet, and this, that, and the other. The truth of the matter is that nobody has ever outworked a job. Meaning that nobody has ever done so much work that the job ran out of work. We are passengers on a journey that continues. So wherever you are seated, wherever it is that you're working, think about the people who have come before you. They came and went. The job stayed. They came and went. The job even got bigger. So you will go. The job will stay. But take care of your good self.